Hello there, friends. This is Spencer Michaud, and today we're going to be talking about the full moon in the first decan of Sagittarius. Hope that you're doing well out there. We're going to go on a little journey today. We're going to be talking about the sun moving through the first decan of Gemini, so we can break down that part of the equation. We're going to look at the moon going through the first decan of Sagittarius. We're going to break down the hosts of those planets, each of which is in Taurus, and then some of the surrounding astrology around the full moon. So I hope that you're doing well out there. We're going to look at the lunation, the full moon, through the houses today, through the rising signs. So make sure you stay tuned for that. We're going to share a little bit of my decan webinars. We're going to do an animal and an I-Ching to help guide us. And we're just going to spend some time together. So I hope that you're having a wonderful Friday afternoon. I'm going to welcome a few of my friends here today. We've got Candy Corn, Corinne stopping in, I think, from Connecticut. How you doing, my friend? Nice to see you. Always nice to see you here in the chat. Rachel Fletcher is stopping in from rainy Roanoke, Virginia. Nice to see you, Rachel. Hope you're having a wonderful Friday and a wonderful little end of Taurus season here, and that you had a great birthday. Appreciate you being here today, and hope that your garden's getting some much needed rain. Hopefully, I'm hoping to get a little bit of rain here, actually, some gentle rain to water my garden here. Makes less work for me. So welcome, friends. Jennifer, what's up, Jennifer? Jennifer is here saying hi from Michigan. Nice to see you, Jennifer. Coming here from my backyard, basically. You know, we live in roughly the same city, Ann Arbor, Ypsilanti area. So nice to see you here as well, my friend. Hope you are doing well. Rachel says, I did have a lovely celebration. Thank you. Oh, good, Rachel. I'm glad that your solar return, your birthday went well for you. It's always nice when we have that renewal with the sun returning to the exact time of our birth. It can just give us a new spark. So hope that you're having that in your life as well. Tracy, what's up? Tracy Chaplin is joining us from across the pond, the UK. Hope you're doing well, Tracy. And all your hedgehog friends are treating you well. Stephen the Jupiterian stopping in from San Francisco. What's up, Stephen? Nice to see you, my friend. Might be a big full moon for you, friend, with Sagittarius rising. So hopefully we'll be able to break it down for you. Okay, if you're stopping in, just send me a little note in the chat. Let me know that you're here. It's always nice to know that there's friends out there hanging out with me today. So a couple announcements before we get down to business. Okay, what we're going to do is we are going to look at the 2024 offerings. So for those of you who are new, and maybe if you're not new, but you might not be aware, in addition to these live streams that I do each week, usually each Friday, breaking down the astrological transits and themes, I also do personal readings. So if you're enjoying what you're seeing here today, and you're like, hey, you know what, that might be helpful for my life, and if you want more personal attention, check out my readings at SpencerMichaud.com. I do mythologically based, fixed star based, decan based personal readings. I do transit readings. I do oracle questions if you have one specific issue that you'd like to focus on. Check that out at my website, SpencerMichaud.com. You can check that out at the Book Now button. I'm also having a sale. So we're about to head into Gemini season. As I'm recording this, Gemini season will be coming right down the pike in a couple days. So I decided to start the Decans of Gemini sale a little bit early. So here you can get a 20% off of the Decans of Gemini. One of the slides I'll show you today, it is a 2.5 to 3 hour webinar that breaks down all the significations, not all, but many of the significations. We don't want to say all Gemini because there's always more possibilities. Many of the significations associated with Gemini, with the tarot, with the I-Ching, with the fixed stars, with the mythologically based stories associated with Gemini. We break it down in those webinars, and there's a nice Q&A session afterwards with some students that were there that day, answering some extra questions. So check that out. It's 20% off at my website. You can find that at Spencer Michaud on the store button. I, of course, also have a beautiful partner named Tanya Andrews, who has a magical business called Third Coast Mojo. She has been busy crafting up, making some great stuff, some great offerings to help you through some of these challenging significations, these challenging transits. Life is going to throw us some curveballs every once in a while, and why not help yourself and give yourself a little nudge with some astrological root work based magic? She's got some wonderful stuff in the store right now, including this beautiful Jupiter and Pisces Oceans of Abundance oil. Check that out. While if you need some extra help, especially with Saturn moving through Pisces, maybe, get a little boost in that area of life that might be a little challenging right now, check her out on Etsy. She does great work. Third Coast Mojo. And then finally, if you like the work that I'm doing here today, you can support the channel by buying me a super chat today here on the YouTube channel with the little $ in the chat. That's always very, very helpful. I appreciate all of you who are able to do that. Or you can buy me a coffee at buymeacoffee.com after the fact. That's a great way to support the channel. It buys me the gift of time to be able to do the research, to be able to buy the materials, to have the equipment. A lot goes into this show, so this is a great way to support the channel. I try to make as much of this information available to you for mostly free of charge, so this is a great way to keep the lights on here. All right, that is what I've got for you today. Got a couple more people stopping in here. Jennifer says, it took all my aloe plants outside. Time for replanting. Oh, nice. Yeah, I've been thinking about taking my plants outside with this nice weather, but I'm always a little hesitant in Michigan because you never know when the frost demons are going to come back. I think we're probably in the safe zone now. Winter is here. What's up, Winter? Saying hi from New Jersey. Nice to see you, Winter. Always lovely to see you in the chat, my friend. Hope things are going well your way. Let's see. Steven says, looking forward to this full moon in Sagittarius and Jupiter moving into my 7th house. Yeah, we'll talk about that today, Steven. Jupiter's going to be moving signs out of Taurus into its exile in Gemini. Although it does have some dignity by face or by decan in that first 10-degree section. So we might have an explosion of options that are coming our way. And it will be very fascinating to see how that might play out for each one of us as an individual through the different topical houses. So with the 7th house, Stephen, maybe something with relationships, a lot of options or good fortune coming to a partner, lots of things to explore. He says, my partner took a tree I planted on the last new moon inside because it had been too cold in our balcony. Yeah. There's, when we're working with those plants, trying to figure out whether they should stay outside or not, it's always a challenge for sure. Let's see. Elfay, what's up, Elfay? Nice to see you. Faye, I hope that you're doing well wherever you are joining us from today. It's lovely to see you in the chat, my friend. Robin is here, says hi, Spencer and crew. Robin here from Healdsburg, wine country, Northern California. Excited to hear what the full moon in Sagittarius will bring. Well, I hope you're doing well over there, Robin. I'll try to do my best to break it down for you. Hope that you're having a wonderful Friday afternoon as well. Okay, friends, let's start kind of taking a look at this. What do you say? What do you say? So we are dealing with a full moon in Sagittarius I. So this is an opposition between the sun and the moon. Full moons are always oppositions between that. I'm going to share my screen just so you can kind of get an idea of what we're doing here. Let's see, there it is. And we'll make it bigger for those of us who can't read all the tiny print, including myself. Okay, so this is a 2-degree Gemini sun opposing a 2-degree Sagittarius moon. We are dealing with a Mercury-ruled sun, okay? And we have a Jupiter-ruled moon. Now that's kind of interesting. Oops, they went away. We'll try to get those back on the screen here. This is going to be happening at 9:53 a.m. Eastern Time on Thursday, May the 23rd. So we have another week or so to prepare ourselves for this interesting arrangement. But we see here that we've got both the host of the moon and the host of the sun hanging out in aversion to both of those signs in Taurus. So it's sort of like the sun and the moon are kind of on their own as far as being able to provide for themselves and their own resources and things of that nature. There aren't any huge aspects to this particular full moon. We do see a sextile to the moon to Pluto, so that might be a thing that we might want to break down. We've got that full moon sextile to Pluto. We do have a whole sign square with Saturn, so the ongoing challenges that we may experience with Saturn in Pisces, trying to find out which of our dreams are sustainable and which ones we need to let go, are probably going to still be, heavy on our minds. Um, the sun in Gemini explodes in a proliferation of options. It encourages us to be flexible. It encourages us to see things from multiple perspectives and break out of some of our solidified ruts or routines. And then with the moon moving through Sagittarius, that particular decade encourages us to find a specific goal to work towards. So we may be trying to balance out some of the tension between a desire to explore intellectually and to take on new ideas, new beliefs, new perspectives, and trying to find which of those perspectives, projects, etc., we want to infuse into a physical form, into a body that we want to have carried forward, like Sagittarius is it carried like the arrow carries the vision to be able to hit a target. There's also themes of like chariots in that decan of Sagittarius, so being carried towards our vision with great speed and great rapidity. So we may have to figure out how fast we want to go towards our chosen goals as well. There was some divination that came up through the I-Ching in particular that encourages us to slow down, as oftentimes things like the I-Ching do, where we might not be ready to completely move towards our chosen goals yet. We may need some more information. One of the things that I've thought a lot about with Gemini is that it's a pollination phase. It's an exploration. Like if you think about it in nature terms, we got insects and bees and pollinators exploring the newly formed flowers and collecting pollen, aka information, to be brought back to the hive, to be processed into something that provides us with nourishment, aka honey. So it's not just the collection process, it's the digestion process, it's the creating something with it. And that takes time, and it's a process. So a lot of times we might feel rushed, we might feel impatient, we might just want to get to it. And this full moon might be a moment where we're just like, I just want to get to it. But the sun shows us what a spotlight is shining on collectively. And in this case, the spotlight is shining on options and being willing to explore before we potentially fully commit to some kind of path of action. And it's the sun is trining Pluto in the first decan of Aquarius, and the moon is sextiling Pluto. So these options that we're exploring may be in relationship to social challenges that we're all kind of dealing with collectively, where we might be either feeling frustrated with our place or with society in general. There's lots of changes happening that could lead to a collective experience. So this full moon feels like it is influenced by a collective experience. One of the things that has been starting to come to my attention as we move into the summer months is that a lot of the air quality alerts have started already in my area in relationship to things like forest fires and how we collectively breathe the air that we experience. And we went through a lot of this last year where we're learning that our actions have consequences in other places rather than just our backyard. And we're seeing that with some of the political challenges in the Middle East, in Europe, etc. So we're trying to think about those things collectively as well as at this full moon. Now, the challenge is that oftentimes issues that we face with talking about the full moon sextile Pluto, the issues that we face often have ambiguities, gray areas. We want things to be black and white sometimes. We want to be able to say this is this and this is that with certainty. And unfortunately, life throws us challenges and situations that don't always fit very neatly into a square peg or a round hole. So we have to kind of figure out how to be able to hold some of these ambiguities and hold some of these gray areas and hold some of these things that we might not have an immediate answer to, and that where there might be competing truths potentially. So I think that's part of this full moon, especially with the sextile Pluto. I think it is important to ask questions. I think it's important to feel like we are um, trying to see things from multiple perspectives, not just one particular entrenched belief. I think this is especially important when it comes to how we create resources and abundance, especially with Mercury hosting the sun. We might be asking questions about our routines. We might be asking questions about how we give and how we receive. We are also coming off of a very interesting Venus Jupiter conjunction at this full moon. So if I put that off for a minute here, so you could see that this will just be separating the day of the full moon. So there's some other really interesting side astrology happening. The ruler of the moon has just made a conjunction with Venus in the final degrees of Taurus, right before both Venus and Jupiter are going to ingress into Gemini, into a sign that is saying, well, have you considered it from this perspective? I know that you've been kind of going in your direction and this direction, and it's habitual, right? Like Taurus is a very habitual sign. It's something that's trying to establish healthy habits and routines. But as we learn, sometimes habits become toxic, right? Sometimes a habit that once supported us needs to shift, needs to change, needs to be seen from a different perspective. So we may get some information at this full moon. The other thing that's fascinating about this decan of Sagittarius is it is related to movement and messages. We have an interesting paradox at this full moon where the decan ruler of Sagittarius I is Mercury, but in a temple related to Jupiter, Sagittarius. And then the ruler of the sun, it is the first face. Okay, we have the first face of Gemini, which is Jupiter in a Mercury ruled sign. So you see both of those decanic face rulers, the first 10 degree sections of each of those signs, is in its exile. So it's in a place that's doing things in an unorthodox fashion. So Mercury, ruling that first decan of Sagittarius, is delivering messages with the power of belief, with the power of speed, okay? And Jupiter is expanding questions, expanding perspectives in that first decan of Gemini. And it's a little bit awkward for both of those planets because Jupiter wants certainties. Jupiter wants to say, this is what I believe, and here is a goal that I'm moving towards. I'm going to confirm, if we use the language of Robert Schmidt and the Project Hindsight, I'm going to confirm this belief, okay? But Mercury throws things into doubt. So when we're trying to confirm a belief and we're getting to the point where we're casting doubt on something, that can feel uncomfortable, right? And this is probably true for a lot of us, myself included, that have Jupiter placements in Mercury ruled signs. I have Jupiter in Virgo. Sometimes having faith in something, having a solidified belief becomes challenging because there's always more questions. For me, I have a lot of aversion to making declarative statements because I always feel like there is more questions to ask. There's more information to process. And sometimes that's a good thing, and sometimes it's a hindrance. Sometimes it can paralyze us trying to search for more and more and more information. And that's one of the themes of the Gemini 1 decan. It's related to the Eight of Swords, and I'll show you that in a second. But it is related to feeling paralyzed by all the different pathways we could take, like information overload, right? So these are the two things that we're trying to balance as we move towards this full moon. And we will just have had the Venus-Jupiter conjunction in Taurus 3 that will show us, I think, some of the pathways forward for correcting some of our previous mistakes. We've been having a lot of action in the third 10-degree section of Taurus that is showing us the results of previous actions, some of which are good, some of which are positive, others of which are a real challenge. And we may be having to go redo some things and atone for some mistakes potentially, and then continue to move forward with our life. Now, here's the thing. If you've made a mistake in the past, like the important thing is not to get stuck in that, right? I think it's to make amends, to atone, and then move forward rather than living your life in a continuous cycle of guilt and or shame. I think that's when that type of energy can become toxic. So there might be some information that comes to you that is positive with the two benefic planets coming together in that decan that is related to making positive changes, to be able to remedy a past mistake, whether it was through your own ignorance at the time or whether it was through just, circumstances outside of your control. This is another thing that Taurus 3 teaches us, is being able to understand that there are powers that are greater than us that basically that we have to surrender to sometimes, and that we have to say, you know what, this is a natural force that I don't have control over, and I have to work with it rather than fight against it. Okay. Let's see. We got some more people stopping in. I want to just give a shout out. What's up, Dawn? Hi, everyone. This is a little late to the party. No worry, Dawn. No worries, my friend. You're here right in time, exactly when you're supposed to be. Gee, Steven says fashionably late. Exactly. Right. Oh, boy. I love the side conversations we have in the chat. Y'all have a nice community going here. What's up, Tom? Mr. Hindsight is here. Says namaste all. Nice to see you, Tom. Don says, I really need to get a reading with Spencer regardless of the decans and my Gemini. Regarding the decans and my Gemini full moon. I would love that, Don. Whenever you're ready, I will be here to be of service. Tracy says, so Mercury and Jupiter have to work together. Yeah. I mean, really interesting, isn't it? Just they are exchanging decans, basically. And decans being a way that we can create a name for ourselves or a good fortune through our own efforts without necessarily having a ton of support. Like it's the ancients would compare it to someone who was visiting a foreign land and didn't really have the support of their guild or of their benefactor, but through their own efforts they created a good outcome. So yeah, we might have to balance out those two competing energies. Stephen says, Mercury is the story we tell. Jupiter is the content of the story. They work well together in Gemini. I could see that. That's an interesting perspective in it. I tend to think of Mercury as the questions that we ask, and Jupiter as the some of the beliefs that we hold, what we feel that we're sure of, right? And yeah, Mercury also can be the delivery, the ability to share things and deliver a message. He was, very much a god that moved between worlds, delivering messages from Mount Olympus to humanity, to other gods, etc. So yeah, I don't necessarily disagree with that. Many different ways to look at it, for sure. What's up, Sarah Renee? Says happy to be listening in, friends. I'm glad that you're here with us today. Sorry, we've got a lot of comments here. This is great. Is that, Tom says, Spencer, is that like a mutual reception? Yeah, I think we could kind of look at it in that regard. I'm not sure that it's an official mutual reception because it's not the actual planets themselves that are exchanging signs, but we do have, the two lights in planetary places that are sort of exchanging dignities. So yeah, I do think that some of the similar themes could apply. Yeah, the decan swap. Exactly, Tom. So we may need to expand our options with our intellect, right? With our conscious awareness. And then we may need to try to pare down those options and move towards our chosen goal. We need to choose something. I think this is really a time for exploration, but then also potentially making a choice. I do think that one of the greater fears of Gemini placements is missing out on an option that they've not chosen. And myself included, I have Venus in Gemini too. And it's there is often a fear of missing out. This happens to me with food a lot. I like being able to have like a communal meal where we share a bunch of little things, right? Because I'm like, oh, that looks good. Like, yeah, I don't know what to order at a restaurant half the time because I want to try all of it. So being able to have little dishes where I could try little parts of it is fun. So I think that this is something where we may be needing to try the little, dishes in our life, these little journeys that we might want to take, but to be able to make anything of it, right? To be able to move forward and manifest. Like, I know that's a big word in these circles. If we want to manifest an idea, sometimes we have to make a choice. Now, the key is that it doesn't mean that you necessarily have to completely abandon all of those other choices indefinitely. I love the way of thinking about Gemini, and especially the way that relates to Virgo, as breathing. So we breathe in information, and Gemini is related to the lungs in some medical astrological systems. So we're breathing in that information. We're taking out the oxygen, and then we're exhaling the carbon dioxide. And that's a continual process. It's not, you didn't take one breath. You didn't just take in one level of information and then stop breathing altogether. You take in the breath, you take out the oxygen, you exhale the carbon dioxide. Then you do it again at a different stage of your project. So I think that's the thing that can help you to figure out how to release some of that anxiety that we may see in the Mercury ruled signs. I think the anxiety of Gemini is missing out or making a wrong choice. The anxiety of Virgo is being able to not, there's an anxiety associated with a legacy. And I say that because we are in the harvest period where we're trying to preserve something and that will sustain us in the winter time, in the leaner times. So there is an ability there to identify flaws in any type of system or any type of object that will hopefully help us to preserve the best of our creations or the best of our harvest so that we will be able to survive the leaner days and nights. So again, they're both related to questioning and anxiety, but it comes to it in a different angle, which I find really fascinating. I'm lucky enough to have both of those signs represented in my chart, so my anxiety level can be fairly high when it comes to, wanting to pass on a legacy or not wanting to miss out on something. So oftentimes what that'll lead me to do is procrastinate. And this might be another danger that we have at this full moon, is just getting overwhelmed by so many options that we just don't know which way to go, and we just feel stuck. And this feeling might increase as Jupiter moves into Gemini slightly after this full moon. So we have talked about the sun in Gemini 1, okay? We have the host of that sun. Here is Mercury. So here is Mercury in Taurus 2. Again, it's not making a witnessing aspect to the sun. It's in a blind spot or in something called aversion to the sun, which makes it difficult to provide resources. The questions that we might be asking, though, are probably related to our routines, how we give and receive resources. So resources is a big theme of this particular full moon, I think, because of the stack up and the providing planets being stacked up in Taurus. We've talked about the moon a little bit, but let's look at the moon. The moon is also going to be out of bounds. So if we look at the moon here, that could make this an emotional full moon. I think that we may be trying to move too quickly, especially because the moon out of bounds says, hey, we're not going to do things exactly the way that society expects us to do. So I think that there could be a lot of tension between having difficult questions to answer, but also wanting to make declarative statements about what our beliefs are, etc. You know, there is a spirit in this decan of Sagittarius called Loimos, related to the 36 heirs of the zodiac. And Loimos was a god of plagues. So we may be trying to spread an idea, right? We also have to be careful in this decan about becoming a host for someone else's ideas. Okay, this is what happens when we don't have our own clear belief system, our own clear sense of self. Oftentimes we can become a vehicle or like a plague host for someone else's vision. And that's something that we may have to reconcile or reckon with at this full moon, is have we become a vehicle for someone else's beliefs, right? Have we committed to a position that now that we've gotten more information has proven to be false? And this is one of the things that I think is the most interesting, and I think that requires the most maturity and humility, is being able to change your mind and change your position when new information comes to you. It's not an easy thing to do. Many folks that have like fixed placements, you know, Taurus, Leo, Aquarius, Scorpio, have really a lot more difficulty with this than some of the mutable placement people. But it can be difficult for anyone to change a fixed position. It can be hard for Sagittarians who want so desperately to have a guiding arrow that they can sometimes do a lot of harm with sharing their beliefs. So we see this all the time. We see this in people who are making motivational speeches. This is interesting because we had an NFL player recently make a really inflammatory speech at a commencement ceremony. I don't want to get into it too much, but this guy Harrison Butker he's a kicker for the Kansas City Chiefs, made a really misogynistic speech at a Catholic university where he basically invalidated the experience of the hardworking women that went through 4 years of college and you know, kind of had a toxic masculinity moment. And that's, you know, that could be part of the blowback that we see in this full moon experience as well, is seeing that, you know, the challenges of someone having such a a belief system that is out of alignment with the current zeitgeist, and just out of alignment in general. In my personal opinion, I think that speech was toxic. But again, people have different opinions about different stances on those types of things. So again, we have to be careful about whose vision we are sharing, whose vision we are dealing with. Is it our own? Now, in like, let's just use this guy as an example again. Maybe he's taken on ideologies that do represent his solidified beliefs, or maybe he's taken on talking points of someone else's vision and he doesn't know any better. In this case, and I don't claim this guy, he's a Cancer sun. And one of the things that Cancer suns tend to be able to do sometimes is they can absorb the light of others and then reflect it back out. So he probably absorbed some talking points and is reflecting it back out, much to his own, I think, eventual chagrin, potentially, with the blowback that he's receiving. In my opinion, well-deserved blowback. But anyway, I digress. But our feelings might be very much tied to our beliefs at this full moon, I guess is what I'm trying to say. And we may be feeling very emotional about those beliefs. I do think that one of the things that will be important is not getting so fixated on one particular belief system that we just, you know, completely destroy any goodwill that we have with people, which it seems like this individual has started to do. So, out of bounds moon, something to keep in mind. Let's see. Tarya T is here. It says hello from Helsinki. What's up, Tarya T? Nice to see you, my friend. Lovely that you are stopping in from Scandinavia. Steven says, you said Lemos. I had an English teacher with that last name. Yeah, it's similar. It's Loimos, Loimos, I believe. And he was a god of plagues. So being able to spread our something far and wide. Now, on the positive terms, we can have enthusiasm for a particular idea that may come to fruition, that may come to the surface, that may become more visible. So if you utilize the first decan of Sagittarius in its most positive terms, you might really be excited about an idea and you want to share it with people. Don says, bless his heart, I know a lot of folks didn't, but I just LOL'd. He was so in his own selfish wants, bless his heart. Yeah. Yeah, Don. And thank you so much, Don, for the super sticker. Appreciate you. Yeah, again, I'm going to choose my words carefully because I don't want to be misconstrued. Like I think that, first of all, I found his speech very ignorant, and I'm someone who believes in the empowerment of women and of all people, right? Yeah, and women in particular, though, like, and to be able to kind of take a hot dump on the work that they did was it was tone deaf at its very least. But I don't know. There is a lot of that blowback right now that's happening where a lot of regressive types of opinions are starting to surface. And it's frustrating to me as the father of a daughter who I have spent a lot of my life encouraging towards education and independence. Those type of opinions are, I think, I just don't agree with them. I guess that's where I will say with that. Now, if I was to do my little, like, see things from multiple sides, I did watch some of the speech, and he seemed to be getting choked up because he was feeling emotional about the support that his wife had given him towards some of his own goals. Now that I could see, and no one's saying that being a stay-at-home homemaker or anything like that is a bad thing. It's just that saying that they've been lied to, like, and that they shouldn't do, the other options out there, that's what people have a problem with. So there's nothing wrong with, like, feeling gratitude towards a person in his life that had helped him achieve a personal goal. It's just that he just couldn't see outside of his own particular experience that made it, that I think that people are really bristling against. And I think he said a bunch of other things, again, that I don't want to really go down that rabbit hole because they're just not things that I agree with. And I'll just leave it at that. Let's see. Corey's here. What's up, Corey? Says, joining as I mow the yard here in the burbs of Iowa City, Iowa. So good to hear your cheerful voice on this sunny day. Oh, Corey, thanks, friend. I hope that you're having a good time over in Iowa City. I've been following, speaking of some positive, kind of manifestations about kind of the opposite sort of stories related to some of the issues we were talking about in professional sports. I've been following along the journey of Caitlin Clark, who Iowa Hawkeye, and I watched her debut with the WNBA, and I've just been really excited to see the narrative changing and the attention that's been given to women's sports, and it's exciting. It's super exciting, version of basketball. I've been enjoying just seeing her change narratives about what is or isn't possible for women's sports, and her starting to raise questions about income equality. Again, sports can be just a little microcosm for different issues in our life. And I think that it's just another vehicle for us to examine our humanity. Oh, but I'm rooting for Caitlin, and I'm rooting for her to change some of those narratives for sure. Don says, I'm sure it's years of indoctrination by his upbringing. Hopefully he learns to open his mind as he experiences new ways of being. Yeah, I hope so too. I hope that this experience is humbling for him, and that he's able to see things from someone else's perspective. And I'll leave room for that. I think that here's what I will say about all of this, friends. Leave room for the people in your life to change. It is 100% okay to call someone out if you don't agree with their particular viewpoint, if they are bringing up an ignorant viewpoint, if they're making a mistake, but leave some room for people to change. When we just completely write people off, I think that's a huge mistake. I don't agree with that. I think that anyone has the potential to change and to see things from a new perspective. And I think that we don't have to ignore the challenging things that someone has done, but we can hold space for them to make a better, more enlightened choice in the future. And man, that is in such short supply in these days. We want to just completely annihilate someone and just leave them for dead. And again, he's getting a lot of what he deserves right now, but I would encourage people to just leave space for people to change as well. I think that's super important. What's up, Devin? Devin says, good Venus day to y'all. Nice to see you, Devin. Hope you're doing well today. Everyone's giving you a shout out, friend. Corey says, I started a new job at the greenhouse here in town. Of course, my boss is a 1-degree Gemini sun. Her mind moves at lightning speed in all directions. Wish me luck. Yeah, Corey, my mom was a Gemini 1 sun, and she was a extremely fast thinker in her younger days and before she had a really challenging illness. She had a stroke, and that slowed her down quite a bit. But man, I'll tell you what, the Gemini 1 sun, experience of moving quickly with ideas from one idea to the next is really a marvel to behold. So I wish you luck with that, friend, and just go with the flow. I think that's the best thing to do. Oh, it says also rooting for Caitlin whilst also covering my eyes as I follow her journey thus far. Yeah, I hopefully people treat her with respect, right? I think that she's an Aquarius sun. She's probably going to have to go do a lot of things that are challenging, where she might not get credit for the things that she's doing, where she might have to go against the grain. There's probably, when you are a trailblazer like that, you are going to have blowback from people that want to keep an establishment in place. So I always tell my Aquarian clients, whether it's the sun in Aquarius or some various other placements, it's just that you are changing things, not just for your current time, generation, etc., but you're changing things for the future. You're changing ideals. You're breaking through, hopefully, glass ceilings. You are showing people that there is a new way of doing things. And you might not get the flowers. You might not get the parade right away. But as children of Kronos, children of Saturn, I think they can take it. Corey says, fun fact, Las Vegas's WNBA team has 4 girls from Iowa on the team. Oh, that's cool. That's a nice little factoid. I love it. Okay. Tracy says, the new perspective is what this Mercury-Jupiter is about. So interesting. Yeah, I agree, Tracy. And in the vantage point that we have literally today, Friday, May the 17th, we might not have it yet. We're still working through Taurus. We have the Jupiter Cazimi, I believe, tomorrow. Jupiter is conjoining with the sun tomorrow. We might not have gotten the download yet. We might not have gotten the information that shakes us out of our, fixed position. So be willing to be open to what comes to you in the next week or two, and throughout Jupiter's movement through Gemini. Okay. Let's see. Oh yeah, Stevens was getting confused about Caitlyn Jenner. Yes, we're talking about Caitlin Clark, who is a trailblazing basketball player from the University of Iowa, who is shattering a lot of preconceived notions about women's sports, and has been compared a lot to, not necessarily Michael Jordan, but who is another fellow Aquarius, but I think more to Wayne Gretzky. someone who it was just really changing the thoughts about their particular sport and raising the awareness of it to another level. Wayne was also an Aquarius, so it's interesting to see Aquarius Jordan, Aquarius Gretzky, Aquarius Caitlin Clark as just transcendent players that are reaching out to communal ideals, right? And that to me is just, it's interesting to watch. Corey says, it's such a loud Gemini experience. My husband is a double Gemini, so I have the stamina experience with squirrel consciousness. I like that. Yeah, squirrel consciousness is a good way to describe Gemini. I love the squirrels. I have made friends with a few squirrels in my yard, although they haven't really been repaying my kindness lately. They've been digging up a lot of my native pollinator plants that I'm trying to get established. So I could they're a little bit on my list right now. But so it goes. When you plant native pollinator plants, you have to be excited on some level when the native animals start utilizing those plants. And my own selfish desire to just see them fully bloom is, that's one way of looking at it. But I can also look at it and say, wow, now some animal in my neighborhood has food, or now some rabbit in my yard is well fed, or something like that. Because the rabbits, I think, they've been taking out my columbine recently. So that's it's been both frustrating but also interesting to see. Okay. Corey says, interesting to hear your mother was a 1-degree Gemini sun. I bet her head was on a swivel and she was smart as a whip. Yeah, she was a Decan 1 Gemini. So she had 9-degree Gemini sun with the sun on Aldebaran. But yes, she was smart as a whip. She was a preschool teacher and she had to keep up with those little kids. It was. She was someone who would check out 10 books from the library and read them all in a week, and then go check out another 10 the next week. It was kind of really interesting to see. She really helped my family, myself and my daughter, have a love of reading and book collecting. Okay. Don says, I don't have an issue with more money if they play the same number of games. Equity is very important. Yeah. Yeah, that was one of the themes that came up, is that the number 1 draft pick in the NBA, Victor Wembanyama, I believe his contract is something like $12 million for year 1. And Caitlin Clark's first year salary is like $76,000, which is really ridiculous, especially for the amount of money she started to make for that sport. And she signed like a $25 million endorsement deal. So I think she'll be okay personally, but it is shining a big spotlight on inequality in the pay for sports. And one thing that, and I won't digress about this too much longer, but one thing that's interesting is that it's not that the women's games weren't interesting, it's just that they were promoted less. So a lot of times when we have someone who people want to promote, it just helps us to see the beauty in that particular situation, in that particular game. And that's something that Caitlin Clark is helping to prove is sustainable about women's sports and women's basketball in particular. Devin says, my solar return has me thinking about what culture means. How culture is supposed to teach us what the norms and standards of what right and wrong are. Ooh, that's interesting. How we no longer have a unified vision on topics that ask us to choose a side. Just insights from my sun conjunct Uranus solar return. Devin, you and I are on the same wavelength, bud. I've been having conversations like that with my partner, who's a Sagittarius, by the way, about how we have the death of a monoculture. The internet has really changed the agreed upon reality that we have. We have so much information coming at us from all different perspectives that it is very difficult to make sense of it and to have an agreed upon reality that we build the laws. Okay, laws are just shared agreements that we have so that we can get along with one another, to be able to have that agreed upon reality to make society function. It's becoming more and more difficult because there's just so many individual realities at play that are, some of them are in direct competition and conflict with one another. But I think that I always take my cues from nature, Devin. And I see that as I learn more, I'm reading a book. I don't have it in front of me right now, but I'm reading a book that maybe I'll do a book club with or something. I haven't done a book club in a while. It's called Braiding Sweetgrass. And it is, I feel like the American answer to Sand Talk by Tyson Yunkaporta. I believe I'm going to look up what is the author's name? Braiding Sweetgrass. Sorry, just give me a minute here. I have a general idea of what her name is, but I'm going to butcher it if I try to bring it up in my memory. Robin Wall Kimmerer. Okay, so Robin Wall Kimmerer's book, Braiding Sweetgrass. Robin Wall Kimmerer is a scientist, an indigenous scientist from upstate New York, who talks about the interconnectedness of life through her examination of plant life, of ecosystems, etc. And I'm in the beginning stages of reading it, and a lot of the conversations I've had with Devin are really reflected in that book, regarding gift economies, around new ways of exchanging resources. I'm really enjoying it, and I'm always kind of confused as to what types of material people would like to engage with, since this is an astrology channel. And I'll be 100% honest with all of you. As much as I love astrology, what I try to do is I like to read about new parts of astrological theory, myth, tarot, etc. But I think I'm at a phase in my life right now, after I went through about a 4 or 5 year, I guess I would call it my astrology master's degree, studying Hellenistic astrology and studying that very deeply with its technique. I guess I'm trying to become more well-rounded again, and I have a deep, deep interest in native planting, native indigenous ways of viewing the world right now, and how we can relate to one another as a community. Maybe new systems of ways of organizing society that can deal with some of the challenges that we have, especially related to climate change and things of that nature. So those are really the things that are starting to spark my passion. And I'm curious how to meld those with the astrological work and with connecting with all of you. So I guess what I'm saying is that if that is important to some of you as well, I would be happy to hear feedback about if you'd like to do more study in that direction and how we can connect it with some of the astrological transits, and if you would like to do a book club on books like that aren't necessarily astrologically based, but that we can connect with the transiting planets and the questions that are raised by planets like, Saturn and Jupiter, the transpersonal planets, and things like Pluto and Aquarius, asking us to make changes about how we relate to society. So that's a long-winded way of saying I agree with you, Devin. And yeah, Dr. Robin Wall Kimmerer. Gathering Moss is also good. I haven't read that one yet. I started with Braided Sweetgrass. So I'm pretty sure I will probably engage with that other book as well. But really, she's an incredible writer. As much as I like Tyson Yunkaporta's work, I find Robin Wall Kimmerer a better writer. I guess a clearer writer, I will say. I'm enjoying this book because I can understand the more of the land and plant references, being someone born in North America, and some of the cultural references are land easier for me. Doesn't mean that book wasn't great. It was incredible. Sand Talk was a great book. But I like this book a lot, and I like the stories that she's telling so far. Again, I'm in the very beginning chapters, but yeah, let me know in the chat if that's something that you think would be a direction to go in. Because again, that's something that I really am really getting passionate about. I want to learn more about plants. I want to learn more about creating native pollinator habitats. I spend a lot of time in my yard doing those things, and for those of you out there, there are a few that have criticized me for not speaking up about certain cultural issues that are important, not, to everybody, but to you in particular. Um, I will say that the things that I do get very passionate and vocal about are the environment and nature and protecting our ecology and things of that nature. So that is one thing I do feel very solid about. The other issues, I don't know if I'm enough of an authority to speak on some of those things. And I think that I feel a lot more ambiguity about some of the other challenges that we're going through as a community. But I know in my heart that I love this planet, and I love plants, and I love animals, and I love the innocence that they represent to me. And I'm willing to go to battle for that, and willing to help, not even just go to battle, but maybe even just help us find a way to love and engage with that and find solutions to those challenges. And I will say everyone has their own calling. And I think we need to allow people to engage with their places of genius, I guess I will say on that. Not to say that I'm a nature genius or anything like that, but I come from college professors, that were biology professors, genetics professors, and conservation professors. So I don't know if all of you are familiar, but, and I'm not saying this to toot my own horn, but I'm just very proud of this person in my life, and they inspire me. But my great-grandfather, his name was Howard Michaud. He taught conservation at Purdue in the 40s, and eventually was a steward of the Indiana State Parks. We did lots of nature walks and things of that nature. Sorry to be repetitive, but he actually ended up getting a Lifetime Achievement Award from Al Gore at the White House for his work in conservation. He was someone who was a contemporary of Aldo Leopold and John Muir and people like that. He went to conferences in Switzerland to talk with those folks and to see how to be a preserver of the rich landscapes of North America in particular, but also, of the world. So that's something that I really resonate with. And I know that everyone has their own journey and everyone has their own thing. So anyway, let's get back to it. Yeah, Rachel says braiding sweetgrass is the very next one on my reading list. Well, Rachel, maybe what do you say? Maybe that's a book that maybe we can read together, if that would inspire you. If enough of you are into it, maybe I'll offer that. Sounds brilliant. We'll see if I can get a hold of the book too. I'll talk about it more in the next few weeks. Corey says, never heard of Gathering Moss, but I couldn't put Braiding Sweetgrass down. Got to go check that out. Good rec. Yeah, she is an incredible writer. I think Dr. Robin is a Virgo. Yes. Yeah, I looked up her chart. She has Mercury in the third decan of Virgo as well, which is like the ultimate juiced up Mercury decan, but it's about preserving a legacy. And I think that she's doing that. And I love that. Trace says, yes, I'd love that regarding book club. Good. Devin says, I also read them in the opposite order. Nice. Oh, very cool. So yeah, incredible writer. Highly recommend it. Pick up the book. Maybe we can do it as a group. Okay. Let's keep going, because these are great little digressions. And again, this is a channel where we're exploring a lot of different interests. Well, let's talk a little bit more about this full moon. What do you say, friends? Okay. So we've talked a little bit about some of the prominent features. Again, if we come back around to the full moon, we've got the moon out of bounds. The host of the moon is Jupiter in the third decan of Taurus, which again is about humility in the face of nature, rectifying some of the past maybe mistakes that we have made either through our ignorance or rashness, or through just shit happening, basically. Okay, so that might be part of what we're going on with here as well. I think a lot of Taurus 3 energy with Uranus and Taurus 3 is showing us the results of our previous actions as a community, as a society, and asking us to remedy them, especially when it comes to like climate issues and our natural environment and our natural resources. So we've talked a little bit about Venus conjoining Jupiter, maybe getting some good news regarding that. We have Venus ingressing into Gemini, the literally like moments or hours after the full moon. You could say it happens the same day. So after that realization of the full moon, it brings us into an exploration of our options. And that is going to be supercharged by Jupiter ingressing into Gemini a few days later. So this is really going to explode our potential options, our desires to explore. But in return, it could also make us feel a little bit, stuck because we don't know exactly what direction we have to go in. What I will say is it's okay to just be in the exploratory phase. I think that if we just embrace that Gemini is one point in the zodiac, and it doesn't have to be a place that we live indefinitely, then we can be more comfortable with its energy. If we realize that we're gathering information and that we're trying to work through exploration phases, then we don't have to have anxiety about missing out on things, right? But we don't want to get stuck there either, and we'll talk about that as well. Robin says, I would love to read Braiding Sweetgrass. I read part of it in college, and I didn't read the whole book. Totally be done. Oh, good. So we're getting some good feedback on this. So I'm not going to commit to it 100% today, but it's percolating. I know that I'm feeling the urge to make another offering, another class, and I always like getting the feedback, and I'm really into that book, and I would love to read it as a community. Steven says, I need a new source of income before I can invest in any new books. Well, Steven, you better get working on that book that you're writing so that you can put it out into the world. I remember that you were trying to write your own book, so hopefully that is going well for you. But patience, friend. Patience, my friend. All right. Let's see. So a couple other things about this full moon before we break it down through the rising signs. The first aspect of this is going to be the first aspect of the moon, which is an important technique for astrologically analyzing lunations in the Hellenistic vein, is taking a look at the first aspect that the moon makes. Now, there's a couple things that are kind of interesting about this that I want to show you. Now, what we're looking for when we look at the first aspect is the first aspect after the moon escapes from the bond, which is a 15-degree orb on either side of the opposition, which is the full moon, or the new moon, okay, which is the conjunction. So what we're looking for is when the moon is getting outside of that 15-degree orb. Now, here's one thing. We see the sun at about 4 degrees here. It's like a day or so after. And we're looking at this. Here's 20 degrees. But let's back up to like about 18 degrees is when it escapes. 18 or 19 degrees. Now, here's what I'm a little bit on the fence about with this. And I know I'm being very meticulous about this, but here's where we're getting to the first aspect. The first aspect would be a sextile with Saturn or a trine with Mars potentially, right? But it's not exactly outside that 15-degree orb. So what happens when we go even further? Well, here it's outside, but the next aspect is actually a trine with Mercury. So we have to go all the way to Sunday, okay, to get the trine with Mercury at 16 degrees of Capricorn, the moon. So I always get a little confused with that when it's close, but not quite. So your mileage may vary with that. Regardless, I feel like we have so it's not 16 degrees, is it? This would be 11. Excuse me. I misspoke. This would be oh no. I'm getting confused by my own bi-wheel. So, all right. I think that this is the place that I'm looking at for when we might experience something. regardless of whether we choose to see the sextile to Saturn or the trine to Mars or the trine to Mercury, they're positive aspects. We can look at them being, sextiles or trines. And that tells me that this full moon may have a positive outcome. Sometimes when we have a square, especially a square to a malefic, the outcome of a full moon can be more painful, potentially. But this one, not necessarily so. The only thing that gives me pause is that the moon will be in its exile in Capricorn around that period of time. So we may have some uncomfortable feelings. We may be trying to build something that is challenging, and the environment may not be as conducive to what we want to build. That decan of Capricorn is related to working with others to build an ornate structure. But with the moon there, we're looking at something where we're trying to receive nurturing in a Saturnian place, which is a sign that is often related to consequences and death rather than unconditional love and nurturing. So it's just a little bit of a difficult place for the moon. Now, the other thing that we can do is we can take this to its last quarter phase. So here's the outer wheel here is where we're going to see the last quarter moon. That happens in a few days on the 30th. Happy birthday, Mom. On the 30th. So you can see the sun is at 9 degrees Gemini. That would have been her solar return. So here is that last quarter moon between the 9-degree Pisces moon and the 9-degree Gemini sun. So we may be tempted to move quickly at the full moon, and that as we go through the disseminating to the last quarter phase, oftentimes last quarter moons give us the opportunity to change perspective. They give us a little bit of an existential crisis where we're saying, oh, maybe I need to shift my perspective, or maybe I need to start letting go of something. So this could be a conflict between wanting to go on an inner journey and wanting to explore maybe in a more social way. A lot of the times, the first decan of Pisces is about leaving some kind of material success behind in search of meaning. Whereas Gemini is not necessarily, I don't think it's exploration in search of finding deeper purpose. I think that can be part of it. I don't want to make wild statements about that, but I think that there is more of a novelty factor with it. So there may be the desire for newness and novelty versus a desire to find depth and to find personal meaning in our life. That could be a challenge at this last quarter moon in particular. And then that same day, the sun's going to ingress into Gemini. Excuse me, that's not right. When is that? Man, I'm not sharp today, friends. Why is that? Well, ignore that one for now. Sorry, that one was not the right thing. Sometimes I will prepare these banners beforehand, and usually the information is right, but in that case it was not, and I'm glad I caught it. So forgive me for my for any misinformation that you may have received here. Okay. Let's see. I'm looking through the chat here. Corey says, what about the moon square Saturn in Pisces at 18 degrees Sag and Pisces respectively? Well, it's part of the full moon, I would say. The actual full moon itself is not close enough to have that particular aspect. I think you might be, are you referring to the bond, the loosing of the bond? Now, the challenge with that is that I don't think that the moon has escaped the bond by that particular time. Let's see here. So if we go here and we look at how many hours in advance it is. And I could be wrong. I've made a few mistakes today, so I could be wrong. Um, yeah, the square with Saturn, again, this it's not quite outside of the bond here. It's very, very close. So, and I did misspeak. I misspoke. I said that the it was a sextile between the moon and Saturn, but you're right, it's a square. Uh, so it goes. Let's say that we do take this particular aspect as the first aspect. Um, I think the challenge between Mercury, you get off on one thing and then you just spiral out, don't you? I'm talking to myself. The square between the moon in Sagittarius and Saturn in Pisces is, I think, the challenge of taking action versus an outer journey versus an inner journey. I think that we want to learn from tangible experiences in Sagittarius. We want to formulate our beliefs through going out and doing something. Whereas a lot of times the Pisces part of it is taking an inner journey. It's taking, finding our beliefs through going inside and through our dreams rather than through the experiences that we've had. So we maybe, with this particular square, let's say we do agree that it is the first aspect after the loosing, after its escape from the bond. It could be something where the actions that we want to take are running into a brick wall of our inner belief system. Or there's something that shows us that our beliefs are flawed, right? Now, that's very interesting to me in the context of this full moon, because I feel like this full moon is probably bringing up the tension between what we think we know and what we need to learn, right? So maybe we are running right into a brick wall of like our own personal beliefs. And it's saying that you can't quite take action yet because you don't have enough information. And the I-Ching that I'm going to talk about later echoes this. I mean, just a preview, it talks a lot about the rain that has yet to fall. Like there's dense clouds, but the rain isn't falling. So again, it's like we're feeling like this tension of we want to move forward, we want to take action, but we probably just don't have enough information. So I think that that's something to think about with this full moon. Okay. Have the moon square midheaven at 3 degrees Pisces. Confused about when the planets hit this point. Have the moon square the midheaven at 3 degrees Pisces. Okay, so you have the moon, Jennifer, at 3 degrees Pisces, and it sounds like this full moon is going to activate that. So when we talk about Gemini rising, I'll keep that in mind for you, and we'll talk about some of the challenges that you might have with that, especially trying to balance out personal needs versus the needs of an other, first and seventh house, and then how that affects your personal expression out in the world and what you're known for with the moon in the 10th house. Okay. All right. So I'm going to keep going, friends. I know that we've got a few questions about personal placements in the chart, but I'm going to keep rolling here. I'll try to get to some of those if I have time, but I need to keep on track here. So what I'm going to do is, friends, let's take a little stretch break. What do you say? Let's take this opportunity to stretch out before we get into the rising signs. Okay. So stretch out. Do me a huge favor, friends. Please like and subscribe to the channel while you're stretching out, while you're getting yourself a drink of water, and hit that like button. You know, that's an easy thing to do. You're hanging out with me for 2-3 hours. Just hit that. Just hit the like button. If you're enjoying hanging out today, that's a super simple thing to do. If you have the means to do so, there is a little $ sign in the chat. It's called Super Chat or Super Sticker. those gifts to the channel, those donations, a lot of that is how I support the work that I'm doing here today. So I'm super grateful for that. And if you're able to do so, I appreciate that as well. But if you're new here, subscribe and turn on that notification bell. I also have a newsletter that I send out each week. And if you're not on that, you should get hip to that also. It's in the description of this video. Okay. Check me out over at spencermichaud.com. Subscribe to me over on Instagram and Twitter at Spencer Michaud. I'm also on Threads. I tend to be most active on Instagram, but I'm not super active on social media in general. It'll help you know when I'm doing things and going live and things like that. But if you're expecting a lot of posting from me, maybe it's a good thing that I don't post a ton. But I like sharing pictures of animals and music and things of that nature. So that's mostly how I engage in social media. So there you go. If you want to see some kind of hummingbird snoring or a cat or something like that, that's probably, you can find me on Instagram. Okay. Let's see. All right, friends. Let's take this through the rising signs. Thank you for your patience today. I don't know what is hitting our chart at the moment today. Maybe it's the Mercury-Pluto square. I don't know, but the energy level is shifting. So let's pull up our screen and we'll take a look at this. So there is Gemini rising, and I will briefly take you through what you might expect as a particular rising, or, you can also take a look at these through the lens of your sun sign as well. I have found that there is some crossover between what happens to us as a rising and potentially what happens to us as a sun sign. So you can take a look and see where your mileage may vary. Okay. So Gemini rising, we're going to start with you because this particular lunation has the sun in Gemini. We always are trying to start with the rising sign where the sun is moving through to promote equity. All right. So here is the sun in the first house, the moon in the seventh. And there is a spotlight on potential options for you personally, for your body. You may be feeling a little bit paralyzed in regards to who you are, because there's a lot of options about the different roles that you could take on potentially. This may be causing a little bit of tension between you and a partner or a business partner, etc. Gemini risings are experiencing their ruling planet, Mercury, moving through the 12th house. So there could be a lot of thoughts in relationship to how you create routines in your life, but especially how you find rest, solitude, etc., or the influences that could undermine those things. Oftentimes, Gemini rising tend to overthink things. They're constantly pollinating every flower, and there could be some frustration when you're not taking the time out to process that information. So this is an opportunity, Gemini rising, to explore, but also not get fixated on one particular outcome, and to understand what you need to create healthy habits of rest. Okay. You may also be getting some information about things that could undermine you, whether it's other people or your own habits. You're going through a challenging time with Saturn in the 10th house, potentially with maybe having a lot of responsibilities within your public life or what you're putting out into the world. There could be a shift of identity out in the world, potentially. We have a friend of the show, Jennifer, here talking about having the moon, the midheaven at 3 degrees Pisces, right? With the full moon hitting it. Okay, so this is an opportunity for you, Jennifer, to figure out who and what you want to be out, not only personally, but out in the world, and how that new persona is going to manifest in your relationships as well. Okay, so balancing out your own needs versus those of a partner. Let's see. I'm just kind of thinking about Gemini rising here. No, I think that's good. I think that we're good here. There could be some shifts within your own belief system that are coming to you through your 9th house with the trine and the sextile from the sun and the moon to Pluto as well. So this could be a shift of identity because of some of the challenges that we have socially right now. So hopefully you're able to navigate those with grace. Okay. Cancer rising. Cancer rising has the full moon over the 12th and 6th house axes. And there is a lot of action in your 11th house, okay, with Mercury and Jupiter hosting, and Mercury hosting the sun, and Jupiter hosting the moon, and Jupiter just having come together with Venus. So this is a spotlight, the sun, on all of the themes we just talked about with the 12th house, about how you maybe undermine yourself, how you ask for rest in your life, how the habits that could be undermining as well. A lot of times with Cancer rising, it's options that undermine you. It's indecision, right? The Thema Mundi has Cancer rising, which is a metaphorical teaching tool, metaphorical natal chart of the universe. And it's a teaching tool for Hellenistic astrologers. And they talk about Gemini, or the 12th house in particular, related to the myth of Ur, and about a time before incarnation where we're trying to make a choice and choose our lot in life. And it's interesting to have Gemini on that 12th house cusp, because it really shows us all of the choices that we have in front of us, but that could lead to some breakdowns at time. That could lead to paralysis. That could lead to indecision. And sometimes it's our own subconscious where we're feeling like we could miss out on something. So this is an opportunity right now to explore some of those challenges potentially. There's a full moon in your 6th house, so something could be coming to a head around your belief systems, around the burdens that you carry for other people, which is a 6th house signification, like the hard work that you might not get credit for. So it's time to balance out your need for rest and solitude with the burdens that you carry and the hard work that you do. Now, full moons, new moons, etc., are always pretty intense for Cancer rising and Cancer suns. A lot of the time, because that's the ruling planet of either a Cancer sun or a Cancer rising. So this is a time where you might be feeling extra emotional, especially with the moon out of bounds, where you might be feeling fired up. Could be feeling fired up about your own belief systems as well. Cancers and Cancer risings have been going through some shifts with their 11th house and the way that they relate to groups as well. I would also say that as a Cancer sun myself, like, I've been getting a lot of information just about my body and about things that I can and can't eat. So if you're going through those changes related to your body and figuring out what you can and cannot do, that can be really enlightening. I'll tell you, friends, I never was formally diagnosed, but there is a history of IBS in my family, and I've been making some small changes to my diet that have been really revolutionary. Like, I'm starting to fall in love with food again, and it feels so good to have identified some of the problem foods that I had in my life. So I'm just sharing that as an example of information that the conjunctions with Uranus and with Jupiter have been proving fruitful for remedying a long-standing issue. Now, Cancer, you may be dealing with some forces outside of your control as it relates to debt or relates to the resources of others, where there could be some challenges around maybe some corruption that is exposed around that, around how you share resources with others or things of that nature, with the sextile and the trine to Pluto in the 8th house. So keep that in mind as you move forward. You've also been having an increase in your public visibility, potentially with the North Node in Aries, or a desire for public visibility. And maybe there's been an uncharacteristic self-expression. And I mean that with Mars coming together with the North Node in your 10th house, Cancer rising, is you may have been more vocal about what your needs are. Oftentimes Cancers try to take other people's needs into account before you express your own needs. And with Mars in the North Node in your 10th house, you might be a little bit less willing to put up with people's bullshit, I guess I will say. And people may be surprised. Like, they may be like, oh, I didn't know you had that in you. And it's okay, Cancer, to have healthy boundaries, right? And to be yourself. I think that's the thing too. That is something to keep in mind also. But you want to be careful. Remember, we've talked about overdoing it with Mars in the North Node. Here's another example of this. Like, let's say we take the sun sign and we apply it to this particular chart. The aforementioned kicker that was talking a lot about misogynistic belief systems, he had Mars conjoining the North Node in his solar 10th house, right? In relationship to his sun sign. And he went probably too far in the expression of his belief, that because what it did is it devalued other people's rights to be themselves. I think it's okay to express yourself in a way of saying, this is who I am and this is what I'm about, as long as it doesn't take away other people feeling their own sense of empowerment, right? When we start to do that, that's when it becomes toxic and destructive. So just be careful of that. Wherever we have been experiencing Mars conjoining the North Node, is our personal opinions, desires, etc., could be so strong that they start to create, difficult situations and untenable situations. Devin says, Cancer rising, you might be overwhelmed trying to do too much too fast, to make a list of routines you'd like to start or refine, and then cut that list in half and prioritize. That's good advice, friend. That's good advice. Alyssa says, Alyssa in the Moon Den. What's up, Alyssa? Says, Cancer rising, Aries sun. Definitely need to integrate all of this. Oh, Alyssa. Well, hopefully some of it is resonating with you. Yeah, and you had that Mars North Node conjunct an Aries sun. So extra, desire potentially for expressing yourself, which again, there's nothing wrong with expressing ourselves. It is important to establish who we are and what we believe, what we stand for, etc. within reason. Like when our beliefs disempower other people, when our pursuit of individuation disempowers other people, that's, again, we have to examine whether that is a healthy self-expression. Now, the challenging part about this, Alyssa and other Aries folks, is Aries has been known to be associated with collateral damage. Like when we're asserting ourselves, sometimes the yang force of Mars and Aries doesn't necessarily take into consideration the damage it can do to other people. And the simple fact of the matter is that we can't please everyone all the time. As much as that breaks my sensitive Cancerian part of spirit in Libra heart, like, I think that we will sometimes make somebody upset with when we are trying to be ourselves. And that's unavoidable. The thing that you have to ask yourself is that, I have to phrase this carefully. Are you really committed to the position that you're taking? And first of all, I do think it's important to try to do less harm. Harm reduction is important. But if you're making people upset that you just completely don't respect their particular belief system, there's not much you can do about it, right? If they're just so far off in a different direction that by you being yourself, that makes them mad, I mean, what can you do about that, you know? And I think that it's important to realize that there are ways to allow, to live and let live, right? I think that what people really railed against with this kicker dude is that he was making them wrong for their choices, right? He didn't say, he said this, but then he went too far with it. He said, I love my wife and I love that she supports me. That's fine. You could say that. But when you go so far as to say that the choices that other people have made that isn't that particular choice that I've made, that's when it goes too far. And that's part of what we're seeing with Mars conjoining the North Node is it's not enough for someone to say, this is what I believe and this is my path. They're taking it so far to say that if your path isn't exactly the same as mine, it's wrong. And I will never agree with that type of, declarative statement. So be careful of that Cancer rising or Cancer sun, Harrison Booker. Like, be careful of that. Or you probably feel the backlash of your community, and deservedly so. Okay. Let's see. Candy Corn says, looking forward to play and explore with Jupiter and Gemini. Yeah, I think that is, especially the first 10 degrees, there is an opportunity for exploration, for play, for being able to understand what our options are. As we go further on with Jupiter and Gemini, it's going to square Saturn. Like that is challenging because Saturn will be in the overcoming square to Jupiter. So our normal lighthearted, potentially explorations are going to have a heavy Saturnian influence. And I think that we should recognize that our inner journey and our outer explorations, they may have some conflict with one another at this period moving forward. The first 10 degrees, I think, are more playful and exploratory. What happens when we get into the second decan and the third decan of Gemini is we lose that decanic dignity. We lose the proliferation of options that Jupiter as the face ruler would have. And what happens is we start getting a lot of potential anxiety over holding too many options, holding dualities. You can see that in the cards, the 8 and the 9 and the 10 of swords. We have the paralysis and the 8 of swords. We have the person lying awake at night, in the 9 of swords, like having a nightmare or like being kept up with their thoughts. And then finally we have a figure that is like stabbed in the back with 10 swords in the 10 of swords. But what that really represents is making a choice. With Gemini, we have that myth related to the Discovery, the Castor and Pollux myth, where one of the twins dies, and one is mortal, one is immortal, and one of the twins has to give up some of his immortality, okay, to allow the other to live. And what I will say about that is that sometimes we have to give up other paths to be able to bring our most important priority to maturity. And you can see that Gemini is a very ambitious sign. I want to make this clear. This is something that I really enjoyed learning about in my nightlight studies. This was a realization that was pointed out to me by Adam over there, is that we're still seeing the sun ascending to its highest solstitial, is that a word? Solstitial. It feels like that Dana Carvey skit. The judicial system, the solstitial system. Sorry. The solstice point, right? We still see the sun ascending to the solstice point and then switch directions. Okay? Like that's where we get some of the themes of like this inability to commit or like changing our minds, because the sun literally changes direction and starts descending each day lower in the sky at the noon point or at the midheaven point. Okay. But make no mistake about it, the Gemini phase of that is still ascensional. It's still ambitious. What I've experienced with having that transition from Gemini to Cancer is that when we make a choice, then we move into the Cancerian phase of things, where we're trying to protect our idea and that seed that we've planted and try to make something of it. Okay? And you can't give all of your resources to every single thing, or it's just not going to grow in the same way. Let's agree for a minute that we have limited physical resources. That means that we can't, if let's say we have a bucket of water, okay, and we have a field of plants, all right, we can only water a couple of them. And those are the ones that are going to mature and fruit and provide us with nourishment. And this is a strictly hypothetical. I know that you farmers out there are like, well, that's a stupid system. You shouldn't just fill one bucket with water. But let's just play along for a second and say that you had to give that water to a few plants to bring them into fruition. That's the Cancerian phase of things. You are trying to nurture those particular things so that they can bloom and blossom. And if you spread that water too thin, if you only give one drop to each plant in the entire field, they're all going to die. Do you see what I mean by that? They're all going to not survive. So if you want anything to survive, you have to choose. You have to be able to commit to one of those ideas, right? Okay. Alyssa says, I've been trying to be myself for what feels like decades. Let go of people pleasing as of last year. What a wild clip season it's been. Yeah, Alyssa, I feel you. And I think that I often see a lot of similarities between people who have similar risings and similar sun signs. And as a Cancer sun, I relate to what you're saying. I have, in various stages, swung very wildly from people pleasing to not giving a rip about what people think. And it's exhausting. I will say that. I try my best to be peaceful and to take other people's opinions into account. But, at the end of the day, we're all individuals with individual needs and desires and individual temperaments, and they're not all the same. And my temperament on this channel tends to be laid back, fairly chill. I don't super enjoy being a provocateur. I enjoy being a calm presence. And if other people can't accept that, that's fine. They can go do and be them, right? Just like you probably, Alyssa, you're probably having to make those choices in your life and just allow yourself to be you and understanding that we aren't always going to be exactly what everyone needs at every moment, which sucks because we want to provide nurturing we do sort of want to mother the world. This is sort of like the Salma Hayek type of thing, right? I think she's got some kind of Cancerian energy in her chart. She wants to mother the world. And oftentimes a Cancerian wants to do that for everyone. And the fact of the matter is that you just can't. It's just an impossibility. You have to choose who resonates with you and who needs your support in that moment and let the other folks go their own direction. So I applaud you on your journey, Alyssa, and I hope that it's working out for you. Jennifer says, yes, I could see that coming. Going to be retiring soon and trying to figure out how I will be seen in the world. Mercury opposite my Neptune, square my Saturn, trine my Venus, and sextile my Jupiter in the 6th and 9th. Yeah, so Jennifer's talking about back to the Gemini rising horoscope that we just did, right? And having the full moon squaring her natal midheaven, right? So that's a lot that's going on. That's a whole identity shift, right, Jennifer? So with your retiring, you're searching for a new sense of identity. You've got Saturn in the 10th house, which is an end of some sort of public persona. And now you're maybe trying on a lot of different hats to say, well, who am I now that I'm retiring? And Jennifer, you're not alone with this. We all go through these different stages of our life. We go through this when we have a parent, when we are a parent and our kid goes off to college. I went through an identity crisis when my daughter went to college. We go through this when we become a new parent. Our identity shifts. We go through this when we lose a parent. We go through this when we transition out of careers. So just take your time with it. You don't have to have it all figured out right away. I'm witnessing my own father go through this transition. He just recently retired. And he's been trying to figure out what his new identity is, what he's known for, what brings him joy, etc. And right now, what brings him joy is going out in the woods and looking at birds. And I support that message as a Taurus moon. Again, we spent some nice time with him doing that, and I'll cherish those moments. But take your time with it, right? And figure out what really resonates with your heart. You don't have to be everything to everyone, is another thing I will say. Steven says, Jupiter in Gemini last occurred in 2012. It was an interesting time for me, for you, Steven. Also in 2001, went to England studying and collaborate with other educational theater practitioners. Oh, that's interesting, Steven. Last time I had Jupiter in Gemini, I was making an album. I was working with a number of different musicians and with different producers and engineers to produce my Tightrope Walker album. So yeah, it's an interesting time for sure. Tarya T says, Cancer rising here. It resonates. Difficult to prioritize at the moment. I have my natal Rahu or North Node in the Aries in the 10th house. That too affects. I try to do too much. Tarya, just choose a couple things, right? I mean, that's all right. We all try to do too much sometimes. And again, we don't have to be everything to everyone. We can be the best version of ourselves to the people that need us most, I think, and then try to do our best in the other, facets of our life. And at the end of the day, we are just individuals, right? We are just one person's energy. And again, we can be stronger as communities, but we do have to recognize our own limitations as individuals sometimes too. Don says, I think that's how said Kicker felt. His feelings mattered. My Aries sun hubby very much rolls that way. Just shake my head nowadays. Bless his heart. Yeah. Again, no one is begrudging people having beliefs, okay? But I do think we just have to be very aware that when we project our belief systems and make other people wrong or limit their power, I guess I will say. It's not a right versus wrong. It's when we try to control other people through our own belief systems and say that they have to follow our belief. That's when it becomes toxic. And I think we ventured into this territory. Again, I say no one will begrudge someone appreciating their significant other and having gratitude. And in his stupid defense, I don't want to defend him very much because I don't agree with him. But you could hear him get choked up when he was talking about the support that his significant other gave him. And that seemed like genuine emotion. And if he had stopped there, it'd have been fine. Do you see what I'm saying? But he went on all sorts of other tangents about how I don't know. I don't even want to talk about his dumb face anymore. He just irritates me, just looking at him at this point. And again, as I said earlier, leave space for people like that to change. Try not to completely give up on people. I think that's super important that we don't give up on people and that we leave space for them to change. And I hope that the blowback that he's getting will encourage that. Don says, my husband was fired in 2012 because he just couldn't help himself. Fingers crossed this year flows better. Yeah, this is the thing. Don is talking about having an Aries sun husband, and that can be a challenge when we have placements in Aries. If we go too far with trying to establish our individuality, it can lead to things like losing our job. There's a petition going around about the Chiefs dude for the Chiefs to basically fire him, to let him go. And I'm not sure that that's going to happen. We'll see. The NFL came out and decried his statements. He also made some really ignorant statements about the LGBTQ community. That's the thing. He doubled down on his stupidity and his ignorance, is what I will say. He really, like, he wasn't content just pissing off women. He was like, oh, let's piss off the women and the queer community and all. He really stuck a giant. Here we go. Here's the best part of the day. He stuck a giant foot right in his mouth, like as the kicker for this. Sorry, I couldn't help myself. It was too easy. But he's choking on it now. Anyway. All right. It says Cancer Sun also in the second can relate to the Cancer too. Jennifer says, yes. That's a really interesting thing, is to look at the rising and the sun sign horoscope and see what's going on. There's some things in the Cancer horoscope that I relate to as a Cancer Sun as well, for sure. Tracy says, gotta go now. Watch the replay for the rest. Thank you, Spencer. Thank you, Tracy. Hope you're doing well. And hopefully we'll get together in a book club or something like that. Dina's here. What's up, Dina? Do you think Jupiter and Gemini will bring windstorms? That's an interesting signification, Dina. Possibly. I think that it will expand air things. I do feel like the air quality issue is an important one. That's something that I feel real personally. Like, I get really, really frustrated when the wildfire smoke starts to block out the sun in my area, because it just is very visual reminder of the challenges that we're going through as a community. So I do think that with climate change, we could see an increase in the intensity of storms and wind and things of that nature. So I think that sometimes astrology is very literal. Yeah. Oh, yes. Dina says 2012 was Hurricane Sandy. Ooh. Unfortunately, I think you could be onto something, friend. I think that the general trend of severe weather is increasing, and it's particularly things like hurricanes. We don't just get like one or two hurricanes; we get multiple hurricanes, and they're much stronger than they have been in the past. So that is a possibility. If there's one thing that Uranus in Taurus 3 has taught me, is that disaster preparedness is important. And I would encourage, within reason, without, trying to, while still living your life, to prepare for the changing weather climate that a lot of us just don't have a lot of control over. Just having your emergency plans in place, having, maybe backup sources of power, or just having a plan is a good start, without living in fear all day long. I think that there are certain things we can do to be prepared for this, whatever the new reality is of it. But yeah, Dina says, thinking of preparing better for this season. Yeah, Dina, what state are you in? Are you on the East Coast or down south in Florida or whatnot? Yeah, wait till Uranus gets there, Don says. Absolutely. Yeah, I think preparedness is always a great reaction to those types of things. Jennifer got a new job in 2012. That's cool. Okay, friends, let's keep going. I'm rambling. Okay, Leo rising. Appreciate y'all being here, though, and appreciate your patience with a little bit of a slower brain today. I never quite know how much mental energy I'll have for a particular day. I feel like I slept really well last night. I felt pretty chipper coming in, and then in the middle of it, just, life had other ideas. So Leo rising, you have an opposition between the sun and the moon in your 11th and your 5th house. So we could be exploring our options with our relationship to the groups in our life or those that we share beliefs with. You may be wanting to have to embrace more personal expression as well, Leo rising. This could be something where you're trying to find a personal expression of collective beliefs, and this could be very much related to how people see you publicly as well, because of all the stack up in this lunation in the 10th house. Okay. So you've got Mercury and Jupiter playing host to the sun and the moon in the 10th. So there could be public expression type of things happening. I do think that this is a good start for maybe having some great ideas about how to move forward with your group. Now, here's the interesting thing, Leo rising. Jupiter is going to move into your 11th house in the coming week ahead. So there could be a lot more opportunities for socialization, social interaction, collective shared beliefs. And that all is going to be probably, I don't know, it could be really good. The interesting thing about Jupiter moving into the 11th is it's moving into its joy. So this is where, even though Jupiter is in its exile in the 11th house, this is a place that it really loves to be. I will just going back to the last time I had Jupiter in Gemini. That was when I was doing my album, and I had to work with all these different people, and it was super fun, and I was enjoying the process. There came a point in the process, though, where I was trying to do too much. I didn't want the album to just be, it couldn't just be simple. It had to be like, all right, this has to be like a 70s Elton John / Beatles album, right? Where it was very layered and complex, and I got really anxious about the mixing process, and I brought in someone else to like fix it after I had recorded a bunch of stuff, and then there was a lot of things that it didn't sound the way I was envisioning, and then I brought in another person to help fix the things, and I actually got kicked out of the studio at one point. The engineer that was recording the album, I was sitting there helping him to pick out vocal tracks, and if all of you know anything about me, I am pretty meticulous about details, and I just overdid it with wanting it to be perfect. I wanted every take to be just the very best, and I was there are times when in the studio, when you're recording vocals, you can chop up different takes. Like you can record 5 different takes, and then you can edit them and stitch them together. And I was completely micromanaging the process, and I had pissed off the engineer so much. He's like, "You gotta leave. You can't be in here to do this. Let me do my job," type of thing. So that to me was another Jupiter in Gemini experience, is like overthinking something, and to the point where it could lead to a challenge. So be careful of that, Leo rising, that you're not overthinking what you're doing, especially when it's in a group endeavor where, you could have some really nice social interactions, but if you are exploring too many avenues, too many options, that's when we get the exiled part of Jupiter. At the end of the day, I think one of Jupiter's, main significations and outcomes is being able to reach an outcome, right? In Sagittarius, hit the target. In Pisces, find meaning. Find a unified, it's a bridge builder, okay? Find something unified, complete something. When we have Jupiter moving through Gemini, it is taking us away from that completion. It's taking us away from the goal, because it says, well, you had decided on this, but here are 10 more options to distract you. So that's where the exiled part of it can come in. That's where the potential for negativity with Jupiter in Gemini can come in. And it gets even more sticky when Jupiter is going to be squaring Saturn, right? Because you want to explore many options, Leo rising, it could run right into Saturn in your 8th house saying, well, you might not have all the resources to explore every single option. And I went through this with my partner recently. We have a lot of projects that we want to work on. A lot of them are garden projects, pollinator habitat, and there's also house things that really need repair. But when you live with a limited budget, you can't do all of them all at once, and you have to make choices. And if you try to spread your resources too thin, nothing will get done. So you just have to prioritize. So Leo rising, make priorities about what really brings you joy at this full moon. Try not to overthink it. There are going to be lots of questions coming up as far as your public persona and the new rhythms and new routines that you're trying to incorporate into that. Try not to let your own personal beliefs with Mars and the North Node get too out of control with that conjunction in the ninth house happening. And then finally, there could also be considerations that you need to take into account with the needs of your community, or of your collective. You might have to be dealing with the public, and your dealings with the public may be changing, right? I think with Pluto and Aquarius, a lot of times when we have Leo placements and we have these oppositions with Pluto and Aquarius, our own personal desires could come into conflict with the needs of the collective. And that can be very painful for Leo types sometimes, because authenticity and self-expression is very important, just like we were talking about with the Aries placements. Now, the difference between Aries and Leo, in my estimation, is that while Aries may not be as concerned with the collateral damage that they're causing, Leo very much is aware and very self-conscious of the response that they are getting from their community. And when their community isn't supporting them the way that they may feel that they quote unquote deserve, that can be really painful for Leo. When Leo isn't getting the applause or getting the parade or whatever it is. Now, I'm here to tell you that approval is fleeting. You may get approval one day and then the next day it's gone. Like that. The approval that you really need if you're going on this Leo journey is one of authentic expression. And what I mean by that, and that authenticity, is being able to marry your inner self with your outer expression. And then people can take it or leave it. Okay? I think that's the biggest growth period for Leo types is, are you a true expression of who you really are, your authentic self on the inside? And is that who you have become externally? And then people can choose to follow your lead, and you don't have to insist, right? When we don't feel connected to our vision and we don't feel like our outer expression is a true expression of our inner self, sometimes that can lead to being autocratic and didactic and say, you have to follow this, because you might be unsure of your own journey, right? But when you're sure of your own direction, Leo rising, you don't have to prove it to anyone. You just travel it, right? And people can choose to follow you, or they can choose to go their own direction. And that is a huge realization that I've had personally as a Leo rising, but I think that I also have seen a lot of Leo types dealing with as well. Now, that being said, sometimes it's okay not to, come first. Like sometimes there's going to be things that you have to give up for the good of your community. And I think Pluto is showing us that too. Leo types are going to really rail against losing individuality, losing what they would consider their authentic self within a system that is very much requiring us to be cooperative right now. Like, if nothing else, Pluto says, you better fucking get with the program or we're all going to die. Like, so I'm sorry to be crass about it, but that's really the message I'm getting from it. It says, you better start living for each other or the whole species is going to get wiped out. You better start sharing resources or the planet's going to just heat up to the point where nobody's going to have any resources. And that's that's the type of thing that we're having to reconcile with. And it's not always fun. It's not always letting us be in the moment, but delayed gratification and using your spotlight and your leadership ability to serve your community in whatever way is important because there's a lot of different ways that that can manifest, a lot of different roles that that can take on. I think that's the best way to deal with this if you're a Leo type, dealing with Pluto in Aquarius, and especially with this full moon making contact with us. How can you shine your light, but also have it be in service of your community as well, and keeping that in mind? Okay, and you could still be you, right? I have found that it's been easier for me to be a visible person doing this service work of helping people understand meaning through the planets than it was for me even just to be an artist. Like, I always felt a little bit self-indulgent as just an artist, just trying to promote me and my face, my music, etc. And if you honestly, if you do go back and look at the themes I was writing about in my music, they were collective themes. So I think that maybe I'm being too hard on my past self on some level, but it's been easier for me to be more visible and have courage to be more visible, to do something in service of a community. Now, you're still going to get blowback, even if you're trying to serve your community. If someone doesn't believe that you're trying to highlight exactly what their chosen either political belief system is, their chosen social belief, whatever. That's where you just can't make everyone happy all the time. And I hope that will resonate with you, Leo. Steven says, so interesting. My mom's Leo rising. My older brother is a sun in Leo. They debate a lot. Yeah, they're probably trying to shine their light, right? Steven says, you sound like my older brother, Spencer. LOL. Get with the fucking program. This is his favorite catchphrase. Yeah, and I try not to be too crass or intense or force anybody to think about a certain belief or whatnot. But if there's one thing that does get me fired up, it is the environment and climate change and sharing resources, and protecting nature, protecting plants, animals, etc., that don't necessarily have a voice. Those are the things that get me fired up. So forgive me for taking a hardline stance with some of that, but I really do believe that we are heading into a very strong need to live for each other and not just for us as individuals. Jennifer says, what if someone was an Aries sun with a Leo rising with Jupiter in Leo at the ascendant? I don't know. Jennifer, I have a friend who is an Aries sun with a Leo rising, and she's an astrologer. So like that could be one thing. I think there's going to be a lot of different factors with that. I think that Jupiter on the ascendant does give someone some magnanimity, and it could also inflate an ego too. I mean, I'm not saying that this person I know has that, but having Jupiter on your ascendant could make you very generous, or it could make you very arrogant. I mean, those are various varied outcomes potentially. But I do think that Aries sun is very well dignified in the 9th house with Leo rising, and I have another friend who is an Aries sun Leo rising. I don't know if he has Jupiter in first, but he is so passionate about the things that he loves. He loves music, and he could talk my ear off about Michael Jackson for literally hours. Sometimes to the point where, and I'm sorry, I apologize if he sees this because I love you, man. But he'll be going off about Michael Jackson or something, and I'm just like, And sometimes I'll like mute it and go do something else. Be like, unmute it, be like, yep, and he's still going like for a long time. No, I love him. He is like a brother to me, and but there will be times when they can get so wrapped up in their own fire that they lose track of what's around them, and that is a challenge for people that have a lot of Aries and Leo, is getting wrapped up in their own passion, and it's hard for me to fault people that feel really strongly about things that they love and are wanting to share their enthusiasm, but yeah, I can rub some people the wrong way. Rachel says, yes, I agree that that is Pluto's message right now. Yeah, Rachel, I'm feeling that. It's, it's not an easy message. It's not an easy thing because, especially, as Leo types, like a lot of times Leo types are wanting to pursue personal pleasures and desires and etc. And having to give up your own desires and needs for the good of the group is in an altruistic way that takes into account multiple generations in the future. It's not always easy for people who are really used to living in the moment. I think that that's something that Leo and Aries tend to do, is they live in the moment. And there's something beautiful about that, but there's also this is the moment in history where we need to think about our future, and we need to think about how our actions are affecting the future, because if we don't, the future is not going to be very good. It's not going to be very bright. Okay. Yes, I can see the passion, Jennifer says. All right, so Leo rising, I hope that gives you some insight into what you may be experiencing at this full moon and into the future. Let's talk about Virgo rising. So Virgos, what's up, my Virgos? Virgo in the jets. Virgo in the jets. Sorry, I heard that song earlier today. I think Elton John's on my mind. Hey, Virgo, here's a full moon in your 4th house and 10th house, son. Okay. You've got all this Taurus stack up in your 9th house. Oh, Saturn's in your 7th house. Sorry, I'll stop now. Oh, it's so spaced out. Virgo rising. Okay, Virgo rising. Benny and the Jets aside, this is an angular full moon for you. This is a place where you have the sun traveling through your 10th house, making a big spotlight on your public persona. Maybe your job, maybe your career, maybe just something that you believe passionately in that you're known for. And it could be highlighting all the different directions that you could head. There could be some things coming to a head and some messages. I think this is another thing I want everybody to consider with this full moon. You could be getting some important pieces of information in the house that Sagittarius moon falls in, okay? Like a delivery from that particular place. Like this is something that T. Susan Chang talks about with Sagittarius I, is deliveries of messages. So the delivery of this message could split our consciousness into multiple directions. So keep in mind that the spotlight, the sun, is probably receiving a message from its opposite house. So you could receive a message, Virgo rising, from your domestic situation, from your family, from whatever, to be able to, that will maybe set you off in an exploration phase in your career. Sometimes changes in our home life can trigger a new self-expression out in the world, or a new career. Maybe your family's changing. Maybe you're having a baby or something. Maybe there's a delivery from the stork or whatever, and that says, well, now your public life has to change. All of this is related to a lot of shifting belief systems too, with Mercury and Jupiter in your 9th house, bringing you some important realizations, maybe through travel, maybe through foreign places, maybe through a relationship with an organized education system or an organized Orthodox religious system. All of those could be ripe for changing and making up for old challenges, or being liberated from old challenges. Saturn's moving through your 7th house right now, so partnerships are probably a source of either commitment. Maybe you're recommitting to a relationship or feeling bound to it, or there could be some endings in some relationships as well. And the whole sign square from Saturn is probably putting a lot of pressure on your relationships to decide what is real and what isn't. You could also be dealing with some corruption potentially with Pluto moving through your 6th house. Okay, this could be related to people that you work with. Maybe here's a little example. Sixth house is related often to like tradespeople that we hire. Let's say that you're trying to build a home, Virgo rising, and you are trying to work with some kind of skilled tradesperson. Maybe because of circumstances outside of your control, it's really expensive. Like materials are expensive, the labor is really expensive, and you're having to change your relationship to skilled tradespeople, Pluto and Aquarius in your sixth house, because of the changes that are happening socially out in the world. And that could lead to some frustration potentially, but you might have to do some of the work yourself. You might have to search for different options, things of that nature. So those are some concrete hypothetical examples. Okay, so try to balance out home and family. Maybe the delivery of a message in your domestic life could set you off on an exploration journey in your public life. Stephen says, could be worse. You may sing it in the tune of Aquarius when the moon is in the seventh house and Jupiter aligns with Mars. Oh boy, this is the dawning of the age of my hairy arse. I'm sorry. Oh man, this is like karaoke hour, isn't it? Corey says, we are having siding replaced next month. Virgo rising. There you go. See? Are you having any trouble with tradespeople or the materials? I mean, this could be part of it. Jennifer says, sister is a Virgo rising and wanting to move desperately. See? So delivery of messages might change. That's another thing. If you want to move towns, you might have to change your job. And you might have to explore your options within a new area to be able to figure out how to support that new life. So that's something else too. Corey says, we've had solar. Nice. I'm interested in solar. Our house has a really weird roof. It's not like there's not a lot of really flat places to put solar panels. And then our yard is very shady. So I'm struggling to figure out how to put something like that in. Plus, it's not free either. It's expensive. But I am in support of that vision. And hopefully it works out for you, friend. Okay, Virgo rising. Feel seen? Let's go forward to Libra rising. What's up, Libra risings? How you doing, friends? So Libra rising has the full moon in the third house. Oops. And the sun is in the ninth. There is that big Taurus, stack up that's hosting all this in your eighth house. And you got this square from Saturn in the sixth, and there's some Pluto action in your fifth house. So this is interesting for Libra risings because there are some planets in their joy. Okay. So the sun is in its joy in the ninth house. The moon is in its joy in your third house. And that is pretty fascinating because there could be a real highlight on how your personal beliefs match up with kind of the social milieu, the social beliefs, etc. There could be a lot of exploration that you're going through as far as finding higher purpose and finding meaning within your life. And there could be some messages delivered from your local community. There could be new rituals or routines or habits that you're eager to explore with the third house moon. There could be movement. It could be a journey coming for you, Libra rising, at this full moon. One that could be a return to roots. This is third house is also associated with short journeys, or not just short journeys, but journeys to a familiar place. It is connected with the fourth house that's related to our sense of home, our sense of family, our sense of roots. So there could be a need to travel to back home, quote unquote. And it is sextiling Pluto in the fifth house. A lot of the ways that you're seeking pleasure are going through some changes. Okay, there's a lot of probably Libra risings in general. I'm gonna guess. I'm trying to think about this. Like, think about what an Aquarius fifth house is all about. Maybe Libra risings really enjoy doing things, but with larger groups of people. Like doing communal social things, like that could be a feature. Maybe doing volunteer work or doing altruistic work, and there's probably opportunities for that right now. Although there could also be some corruption around that as well. Sometimes organizations that pretend to be altruistic organizations have selfish motivations. So keep in mind that there could be something of that coming up for you as well. The ruler of your ascendant, Venus, is going to be moving into Gemini soon, but has just recently on this full moon is going to be conjoining with Jupiter. So this could be a really interesting moment, Libra rising, for taking care of a long-standing shared resource challenge. With Venus coming together with Jupiter, maybe you finally figured out how to manage a shared resource, and that could lead to some really important insights as to how you organize your life. Okay. Corey says, electric roofing, even the cable company sent door-to-door salespeople come solicit sales all the past week. Oh my goodness, Corey. Oh my gosh. Yeah, there's so many different ways to engage with all of that. We're in the market for, I think, finding an electrician that will rewire our house to support a generator, so that if it gets really hot this summer, we'll be able to have a backup generator. And this house is wired really awfully, and it doesn't. If I have too many things turned on, it blows the fuses regularly. So that's my summer project. Let's see. Steven says, my triple Libra partner needs some joy in his life. Well, I hope that your partner is doing well, friend. Fingers crossed it will be so, Steven. Yes. Jennifer says, my Libra son daughter is coming home for a good long visit. Well, see, there you go. There is a crossover between the Libra rising and the Libra sun horoscope, where a return home for a journey, right? That fits very well. Okay. Friends, let's keep going. Let's keep going. Scorpio rising. Scorpio. Do me a favor, friends, before we dive into Scorpio. Let's take a little stretch. Do me a favor and like and subscribe to the video today. Subscribe to the newsletter if you want more updates on book clubs, class offerings, live streams. Third Coast Mojo stuff is up there. Tanya has a number of new Mars and Capricorn offerings. A little birdie told me that she's got some good Venus stuff coming for you in the coming weeks ahead, so keep your eyes peeled for that too. And she's been doing a lot of good work lately. A lot of good work. I witness it. It's awesome. She's very good at her craft. If you all want to make a donation to the work I'm doing here today, you can buy me a super chat here live on YouTube with the little $, or you can buy me a coffee at buymeacoffee.com. All right, Scorpio rising. You have a full moon over your 8th and 2nd house axes. There is a big Taurus stack up in your 7th house. And there is a sextile to Pluto in Aquarius in your 4th house. So, Scorpio, this is a full moon that is highlighting what is yours versus what is someone else's. And as the sun moves out of your 7th this week and into the 8th, there could be a lot of options as far as having a lot of discussions about your shared resources with a partner. There's a lot of action in your seventh house. There's a lot of Uranian conjunctions with different planets. You know, we had a Sun Uranus conjunction, where we have a Jupiter Sun conjunction coming. All sorts of stuff. And eventually we'll have a Venus cazimi, but that's going to happen in Gemini in June. So a lot of discussions with a partner around fixing something, some material process potentially that has fallen into disrepair. Okay. And now that you've had those discussions, you've had those insights, now there's a lot of options about how to distribute resources, etc. And you may want to take some action, like maybe you want to buy something, but you have to have those discussions with a partner first. I think that's what this full moon is potentially about, is saying, okay, you've identified a lot of things that you need to do or fix, etc. Now you need to have those important discussions about where the best allocation of those resources are before you just like push the go button on something. It could be related to your home. You've got Pluto moving through the fourth house. There could be some corruption that's exposed within your home or your family, etc. Oftentimes when Pluto moves through our fourth house, sometimes we're losing family members. There's a Scorpio rising I know who's one of their parents is kind of on the way out. So that could lead to some changes. There is a experience where through these changes, you might have to have some objectivity. You might have to meet up with groups of people to find a new vision, a new shared vision, etc. Could also be related to your home as well, Scorpio rising. This could be something where, maybe there's something that's exposed with the electrical is something that comes to mind. Like as Aquarius is related to circuits of exchange, there could be a corruption in your wiring. This would be one interesting way of thinking about my own struggles, but maybe there's some sort of electrical problem that has been exposed. This is what Pluto does in my estimation. Pluto it brings up things that have been repressed for a long time to be reborn and transmuted. So it is shining its dark, bat signal. I don't know, it's not really a spotlight, it's like a bat signal on an issue in your life that is related to your roots, to your family, to your home, and asking you to fix it. Your ruling planet Mars is in the sixth house, so there could be just a lot of hard work for Scorpios right now. You may really want to be, you may be asking yourself, oh man, when am I going to get a break? But the Mars is conjoining the North Node, increasing, Mars is in its joy in the sixth house. So you may be good at the crisis management, but there's probably a fair amount of it to manage at this point. I think that one thing to consider, Scorpio rising, is this may be a good time to take some actions while Mars is still in Aries before Mars moves into Taurus. Because Mars is moving into Taurus in the next month, and its energy becomes more erratic. And we're going to have a big Mars-Uranus conjunction in your seventh house, in an angular house, coming in July. So if you've been working on issues with your partner, I think this is a good time to kind of solidify some of those changes and maybe some of those realizations, and leave some space for some adjustments, because there could be, if you let things go that are a problem right now, they could lead to an even more explosive challenge when Mars and Uranus come together in your seventh house in July. And our energy may be, like I said, it's not as easy to get started or to stop. So let's say we're having a conflict. It might be harder to stop arguing about it or stop escalating it when Mars is in Taurus. So utilize that Mars and Aries energy at this point if you can, to prepare yourself for I think for a better future, especially in relationships. Okay. Sagittarius rising. All my Sag risings here today. What's up? What's up, my friends? Steven says, get those Scorpios a Kit Kat bar. I guess so. All right. Break me off a piece of that Kit Kat bar. You better do stuff with Aries Mars. All right. So Sag rising. Yes, Steven says Sag rising here. Yes, I know, Steven. I know you're Sag rising. You've been waiting so patiently. I know that you're at the sort of at the end of the conveyor belt of rising signs here. Dawn is also. All right. I got my Sag risings in the house here. Appreciate your patience, friends. So let's take a look at this. Sag rising, this is a full moon that is angular for you, which I always find that the angular full moons are, we feel them more intensely. We feel them more personally. Oftentimes, if we have a full moon in a cadent house or succeedent house, things tend to happen adjacent to us. But with this particular full moon, this is a very personal one. So we've got that stack up in your 6th house. I'll try to make it green. In Taurus, a lot of realizations maybe around your health, or around the work, or your habits potentially. Even with dealing with things that pull you away from completion. Maybe they weren't necessarily any fault of your own, but maybe it's a chronic condition or something, but there could be some realizations around that. And this is probably those insights into your 6th house. And we've got all our Sag risings checking in here. Those insights into your sixth house issues could lead to some exploration within a partnership. Okay. So this is a full moon where you might be exploring different ways of thinking about your partnership. Maybe your partner is exploring options with the sun in the 7th house in the 1st degrees of Gemini. It could be leading to a new sense of expression for you personally. And a lot of it is, again, maybe the things that you fixed are helping to lead to some new energetic expressions. Now, Pluto is sextiling this full moon from the 3rd house. So there could be some things happening in your local environment that are requiring you to change your relationship to how social you are. Like maybe it's with a neighbor, maybe it's with a sibling, maybe it's with your own habits and routines. I feel like that's a 3rd house issue too. Because it is the joy of the moon. It talks about those daily journeys that we make, those daily habits, those daily errands that we do. So there could be something around that needs shifting. Now, Sag risings have Saturn in the 4th house, so there could be some changes or endings around a home or a family member as well. And you may be putting a lot of energy towards your personal creative self-expression with Mars conjoining the North Node in the 5th house. Okie doke. So try to keep doing those not necessarily fun things, but the things you have to do. There's a prominent Sagittarius in my life who's been getting some dental work done. And that's not the most fun thing in their life, but it was necessary, right? And it'll hopefully lead to greater health in the future. So think about things like that you might have to do that aren't the sexiest kind of things in the world, but eventually they're going to lead to good fortune. Okay? And the other thing, Sag rising, is you have a big change coming. All right? And the big change is that Jupiter is about to move into Gemini. Okay? So I want you to prepare for that too. At the end of next week, your ruling planet moves into the 7th house, into its exile. Normally, Sagittarius, rising, sun, etc., love to be able to move with certainty towards a particular goal, outcome, etc. The challenge with this is that there's going to be a lot of ambiguity that you're going to have to hold. You're not going to be able to make declarative, definitive statements. There's going to be probably a partnership issue that will require you to be a good listener, a good person who is trying to see things from multiple vantage points. And that may not be all of your strong suits. And that's okay. We all have our strengths and our weaknesses. It just may challenge you to be able to incorporate that that type of thinking into your life. And it could lead to some paralysis in relating to others too, as you try to acclimate yourself to that new energy. The good news about Jupiter changing into Gemini is that Jupiter becomes angular again and starts witnessing your ascendant. That to me is not necessarily a bad thing. When a benefic planet like Jupiter or Venus is in aversion to the ascendant, sometimes it feels like our luck has run out, or it's hard to create good fortune in our life. But once Jupiter starts witnessing the ascendant again, good fortune may come to you through a partner, okay, through the expansion of a partner or something like that as well. So think about that as a possibility. Karen is here. What's up, Karen? Nice to see you, KP 1231. Hi, Spencer and all joining. Very late. This lunation is right on my ascendant. So glad I made it. Wow, Karen. So I hope that my advice is resonating. I hope there's some peace in there for you. And there's a lot of, like, Sagittarius right now are going through some changes within their family life too. Some not always some fun changes too. Like maybe there's an aging parent that needs a lot of attention right now, or maybe there's some changes in their home life or with their home or residence that are, bringing you a lot of responsibility. So hang in there with that and try not to overthink too many things. It's good to explore a little bit. Try not to make too many definitive statements, but you could be getting some messages at this full moon that will lead to an exploration of your options moving forward. And again, slow down. Just because you might not have all the information. One of the things that I find with my Sag friends, I'm thinking particularly of an old landlord that I had. He's an awesome dude. I love him. He's one of my favorite people. But one of the things that he was known for was doing projects before he did any research on how to do it. He was just like, I'm just going to do it. I'll just do it and then read the instructions later. And in some cases that worked out very well. And in other cases, it just led to less than ideal craftsmanship. So this could be a particular moment for you Sag risings where it's okay to gather some more information. It's okay to ask some questions. This is another thing I realized with my Sagittarius moon daughter. She hated asking questions because she felt like she should know something. And I'm giving all of you Sages a permission to not have to know everything. Like, it's okay to ask questions. It's okay to say, you know what, I don't know. That's an interesting question. I need to get more information on that before pulling back your drawstring and shooting your arrow in a direction that is where you haven't aimed. Like this Gemini Sagittarius lunation for you Sages, this is all about aiming the arrow in the right direction and taking your time and saying, I really have to refine my aim at this point before I just recklessly go off in whatever direction that I may feel inspired to in the moment. Okay? All right. Stephen says, full moon 2 Sages conjoin my natal Neptune. Oh my goodness, Stephen. Well, make sure that you're dealing with realities rather than fantasies. I think that it's important for you to be clear about what's really happening in your life versus what you hope to be happening. And Stephen, as your astrological accountability partner here, what's going on with that book? What are you doing with that book? You said you've been going to write a book. How's that going? Have you created the habits that you need to sit down and write every day? Because those are the types of things that you need to do if you want to get that thing out in the world. So I'm gently giving you encouragement to find the types of habits that will help you to get that work out into the world, if that's something that's still important to you. And I wish you luck, my friend. Jennifer says, my Sag X just called me yesterday about some health problem. Oh my goodness. Well, Jennifer, maybe they're going through some stuff, right? And you have to determine what is your responsibility and what isn't, right? But I don't know what kind of relationship the two of you have, but yeah, a lot of Sag risings and Sag suns are remedying, or hopefully trying to remedy, some kind of maybe physical issue that's been vexing them for quite some time. Yeah, he's Sag Sun and Rising. Oh my goodness. So yeah, he's probably definitely going through it. Steven says, my mom will be 84 on Monday. My dad will be 90 in September. Oh my gosh, Steven, you're so lucky to have parents that live that long. That is a gift. My mom passed at age 62. So what a gift to be able to spend an extra 2 to 3 decades with them. So don't ever take that for granted, buddy. And I wish them the best of luck and the best of health. KP says, Karen says, an aging parent, a lot of relationship ambiguity. I feel like if the relationship stays steady, I can handle anything, but still a lot of unknowns. Yeah, I feel you on that, Karen. We've got an aging parent situation in my family too. It's my partner's dad is going through some stuff. He has Alzheimer's, and it's just a lot. It's a lot to deal with, and there's a lot of ambiguity in a situation like that. So I feel you, and I have compassion for that situation. The relationship ambiguity, I think that sometimes, again, we want certainty in all situations a lot of times, especially Sagittarians love certainty. They love to say, I believe this, and this is what is true with a capital T. But life doesn't always work that way. There's a lot of lowercase relative truths, lowercase t relative truths. And instead of just blowing something up or running away, which is another favorite Sagittarian activity, sometimes it's okay just to not have all the answers right away. Live into the answers. Gather pollen. Gather information. That's going to help you on this journey, is gathering more information about that. Okay? Steven says, I understand that. I hate to asking questions too, Sagittarius moon and rising. Felt like I should have known it then. Yeah, Steven. And that's something that is, I think that it takes humility to be able to say, I don't know something when you don't know it. And that is, there's no shame in not knowing something. There's only so many things we can know at one time, right? And I know that sometimes we have been trained to feel guilt if we don't have an answer to something. But that's just our past programming. And to me, this is an opportunity for folks to release that and say, you know what? I'm good enough just the way I am. Just not because I know something or because I'm able to share some realization or insight. It doesn't make you any less of a person if you are gathering more information and getting more perspective. In fact, that's often a sign of maturity, is being able to ask the right questions and to be able to admit when we don't know something. I'm working on that every day. I try to do that more and more in my life. I used to have a lot of, I don't know if it was a lot, but I had my moments where I made very strong declarative statements as a young person because I thought I knew everything. And guess what? I didn't. Life made that very clear to me and humbled me. And it's still a process. There are still times where I think I know something, and then life's like, nope, you haven't gotten that figured out. Hello? Are we back? Sorry, I clicked the wrong button. This is life humbling me. Oh no, I lost all my slides. Oh, this is great. This has been one heck of a live stream. Y'all still with me? All right. Jennifer says, my Sag rising dad and I finally got to see his 104-year-old mother on their birthday 2 days before the solar eclipse. Wow, that's fun. I had a 106-year-old great-grandmother. That was pretty cool. Steven says, that one scene from Indiana Jones movie comes to mind. I want to know, and her head explodes. Yeah, that's true. That's funny. Oh, boy. So, I'm going to fill in some more things here. Whoops, that's not what I wanted yet. We'll get there. Let's keep going. Sorry for the momentary blackout. I hit the wrong button and stopped my feed. That was fun. So let's go forward. Let's talk about cap rising. This is just kind of how it's going today. Yes, 106. That was awesome. She was a great lady. She was a fourth grade teacher, and she taught for 50 years plus, and then she was married for 70 years. Like my great grandfather lived to 96, and they were married for 70 years. And my great grandfather was the guy who got that award from Al Gore at the White House for lifetime achievement in conservation efforts. And my great grandmother also has like a, I don't know, like a bench named after her at the elementary school that she worked at because she made such an impact in on that scale. So they were really inspiring people to me. They lived in Lafayette, Indiana, and just were really cool people. I got to know my great grandmother as an adult because she lived so long, and I went down and played family archivist and historian and recorded about 10 to 12 hours of tape of just asking her stories about her life and preserving some of that family history. It was a really neat experience. All right, so cap rising. Sorry if I lost half my audience from just accidentally going dark there. Press the wrong button. So full moon for you Capricorn risings in the 12th house. The sun's moving through the 6th, giving you options as far as maybe dealing with how much you are burdened with work, maybe exploring your options with like how you go about your job, maybe exploring options with practitioners that you work with and things of that nature, like doctors, dentists, people that do services for you potentially. A lot of the action with Taurus is happening in your 5th house, okay? The Jupiter-Venus conjunction. And Uranus is moving through there, like probably helping you to decide how to pursue pleasure in a way that's healthy, right? Maybe release some bad habits that maybe have led to some health changes and find ways to seek pleasure and just release the grind. I think that this is a thing that's hard for Cap Rising sometimes, is that they are very much in the grind, and finding ways to have fun can be tough. I know my beautiful Capricorn rising partner is an amazing chef. So like utilizing Taurus type of things like food and feeling good in the body, creating beautiful like works of art or crafting things is interesting for Cap rising. So if you're looking for ways to have fun, like crafting, cooking, those things can be supported. I had 2 peak sandwich experiences this week. My partner made this amazing grass-fed steak chimichurri sandwich on a sourdough baguette with like mayonnaise and tomato, and oh my god, it was so good. And I'm starting to enjoy things that I didn't think I could eat again, because I recognize that I can't eat a sugar called fructan, which is in garlic and onions and some breads, not as much in sourdough bread, and in like asparagus and apples. Those are the things that I couldn't eat. And now with that knowledge, it's game on. And then we made a chicken sandwich that was basically a repeat of that chimichurri sandwich. It was good. But I digress. I think I'm getting hungry. So Cap Rising, the other thing that I will say is that you have Saturn hanging out in your 3rd house. And Rachel says, I live for stories of Tanya's cooking. Oh man, Rachel, it was good. It was a peak sandwich experience. It was like those crunchy baguettes, like sourdough baguettes from a local bakery, grass-fed beef from our local farmer, who really does a great job sustainably raising that cattle. And it was so good. Chimichurri with like chives instead of regular onions, because if you have like a fructan allergy, like you can eat chives. Like the green part of the onion is a lot easier to digest than the white part. it was so good. It was so good I had to lay down afterwards. And I was kind of like, man, it was orgasmic. You have to lay down after that kind of experience and collect yourself. That was that sandwich for me. But anyway, yeah, there's simple and pleasures in life that I think that we should learn to appreciate. And for me, a good meal is that. Like I was so blessed to have a partner that is not only a great chef, but just really enjoys doing it. And she is a true artist in, with her cooking. And I'd never for 1 second take that for granted. Now, there's an example of someone giving a compliment to somebody's cooking without making them wrong for having a career, right? Like I somehow lucked out. I have a superhero for a partner. She's not only a great chef, but she's an amazing like career person as well. Like she manages a farmer's market and manages a magical business. I don't know what I did to deserve that. Probably nothing. But she is a light, and it's nice to be able to just appreciate everything that she does. Yes, definitely yum, Jennifer. So Cap Risings, you all are incredible. I don't know how you do it. You keep it together in so many different areas of life. Keep in mind that Saturn, your ruling planet, is moving through the third house right now. So you may be changing some of your habits and routines. You may be, really having some changes with siblings and neighbors as well, and figuring out what is realistic about your daily routine and what isn't. Oftentimes, Capricorn rising will take on so many responsibilities that they don't leave enough time for themselves. And this is important for you to like take some time to just relax and figure out what is possible for you to achieve or what isn't. And life isn't always about achieving. Like sometimes not achieving is fine. Just being is okay. So that can be helpful. The full moon in this particular arrangement, you may really need a break. Okay? Like if you keep grinding, life may force you to take a break. This is something I've noticed is when we force ourselves to keep going and going and going and going, sometimes our body just revolts and says, nope, I'm done. I need a break. And with the moon in the 12th house, if you actively like take that break rather than making your body do it for you, I think that can lead to better outcomes. Being intentional about the breaks that we take rather than, having life force it to us. Mortal and Mild says, LOL, Spencer's epic sandwiches sound like a book to me, with the scale of goodness being how much of a lie down you need after. That's funny. Oh, that's funny, Carol. I think Tanya would be amazing at writing a cookbook, and I could definitely support. I'll be the guinea pig. I'll be the tester, and we can rate it on the scale of how horizontal I've become after that meal. That's hilarious. Jennifer says, what farmer's market? So Jennifer, who is local to our area, Tanya manages the Pittsfield Township Farmers Market, which is a township that is right outside of Ann Arbor, Michigan. And she's able to she brings in all the vendors and all the entertainment, and she manages all the different products. There's an online market. So if you're in the local area and you want to support her work, head over to the Pittsfield Township Farmers Market over on Michigan Avenue. Okay, Cap Rising. Keep in mind too, one last thing, Cap Rising, to keep in mind is that you had the Aries North Node conjunction in your fourth house too. There could be feeling spicy at home. You could be wanting to take actions with your home and assert your individuality in your domestic life or with your family. Or there could potentially be a severing or separating within the home or the family or with parents or something of that nature. So keep that in mind as well. And try not to overdo it in the domestic life, in the private life, as far as anger. Find constructive outlets for anger. Because a lot of times when we feel overwhelmed, that can express itself in anger, it can express itself in depression. Oftentimes with Cap Rising, with this melancholic temperament, they can get a little depressed if they start to feel overwhelmed. And so finding joy and being able to release some of your burdens can alleviate some of that, hopefully. Okay. Jennifer says, cool, near my work. We'll go take a visit over there. She'd be interested to meet up with people. Okay. Let's keep rolling. Aquarius. Here's this for you, Stephen. Aquarius, Aquarius. This is the dawning of the full moon in your 11th house. Full moon in your 11th house. Sun is in the 5th house of entertainment. 11th house. I'm not going to subject you to that. All right. So here is a full moon over your 5th house and 11th house axes. So there could be some sort of messaging coming to you through a group that could lead to an exploration of your personal options, of your personal creativity. There is a big stack up in your 4th house going on, Aquarius rising, with the Venus and Jupiter coming together, and Uranus and Mercury all hanging out in the 4th house. A lot of the focus has been on family and about your domestic situation and about how to fix something that has fallen into disrepair. I have a beautiful Aquarius rising friend who's had some changes in their family life, and that's led to a whole new sense of self, like with Pluto moving through the 1st house. You know, there's a dismantling of a persona that's happening right now for Aquarius risings, but the beauty of that is the opportunity to rebuild, the opportunity to take on new roles and new ideals, potentially new ways of thinking about what is possible. Oftentimes, okay, this is something I got from Joy Usher that I found really, really helpful. Saturn ruling Aquarius brings us limitations. And in Capricorn, we have limitations that sometimes are physical. We feel trapped inside maybe a prison growing up. Whether it's a situation or something like that, we're just like, oh, I feel trapped. In Aquarius, we feel exiled. We feel like on the outside looking in. And the way that Saturn works through Aquarius is it creates that glass ceiling instead of the iron wall of Capricorn. It is saying, well, you shouldn't believe that this is possible, right? It's saying, well, you could do this. We'll show you a glimpse of it, but here's a belief that is a limiting belief that is stopping you from doing that. So what Pluto's doing right now is it's shattering a lot of those limiting beliefs for Aquarians in particular, and saying, you know what? Maybe this is possible for you. Maybe the crap that you've been fed when you were younger isn't true, and you're incapable of a lot more than you thought in the past. And that negative reinforcement that you received as a young person doesn't have to be the shaping ideal that guides your life. It could be something completely different. So this could be something where you're trying to balance out your relationship with the group, your own personal self-expression. Aquarius risings are going through a lot of, financial maturity right now, or maturation. There maybe these changes in the home life are forcing you out on your own and changing the way that you deal with how you are supported in your own support system. So that's something to consider. And this is really where Saturn's hanging out as the ruler of your ascendant right now. That's a lot of the focal point for Aquarius risings is, man, how do I make money? How do I support myself? What is realistic versus what isn't? What is my value? And there might be some difficult reality checks with that. But if you value yourself and are also realistic about what is or isn't possible, that can lead to a good outcome in the end. Mortal Mild. Carol says, I've been making lyrics. I wrote in the 80s into full songs with the aid of... I've been making lyrics that I wrote in the 80s into full songs with the aid of AI. It's been cool for me as a non-musical person. Oh, that's cool, Carol. I believe Carol's Aquarius rising. So yeah, maybe you're having a peak moment with your creativity at this full moon, right? With a lot of the spotlight of the Gemini sun in the 5th house, and maybe there's something where you share it with the world. Maybe you put something up on your social media account or something and say, whoa, here, check this out. This is something that I'm working on. Maybe it's a revelation of that. Maybe you get some good feedback. Who knows? But yeah, the technology part is opening up a lot of possibilities for artists and whatnot. So yeah, keep going, Carol. Keep creating. That's something that it can be really fulfilling, you know. And I hope you and your new kitty are doing okay too. Queen Mob, is that her name? I'm trying to remember. All right. I've been putting them on my YouTube and Spotify. Good, Carol. Maybe this will be a peak moment for that. So I'm excited to hear that. I'm always in support of people's creative processes. You know, it's nice to be able to express ourselves and feel like we're creating rather than being destructive. I think that that's a great remedy for when we're feeling self-destructive or when we're creating drama in our life. Like, that was great advice I was given by a creativity teacher, is keep the drama in your work, like it'll stay out of your life. Put the drama on the page, or drama in the song, or drama on the canvas, and your life will be a lot smoother for it, hopefully. Okay, let's finish this one off today with Pisces. Actually, never mind. Let's do Pisces and Aries and Taurus. Oh my God. We have that far to go still. This has been a long one, friends. We'll get through it. Sorry, I didn't mean to shortchange anybody. I'm surprised that that's where we're at. We've gone on some long, weird digressions today, and that's my fault. But so it goes. If you're still here and you're still subscribed, I appreciate you, and thank you for supporting me, even if we're going on a weird, long-winded tangent. I know some of you are here for the tangents. Some of you are like, just get to my rising sign. The Aries rising's out there. But it's a lesson. It's a lesson in patience. And it really isn't intentional. I'm not doing it to torture you. Some days I'm rambly. Okay, Pisces rising. You have a full moon in your 10th house opposing the 4th house sun. So this is another angular full moon. So you might be exploring your options with your domestic life, with your living situation, because potentially of a job situation, or vice versa. Maybe you're getting a new job and that's making you explore your options with your home, with your family, etc. Pisces risings are going through a lot of Saturnian reality checks right now. It's binding us as a collective to become realistic between what is in our imagination, what is in our dreams, and what we can bring into this realm, this physical manifested realm. Those things don't always match up. The decan that Saturn's in is a Jupiter decan. So usually there's a bridge between the dream and the lived reality. Here, there's a big wall to climb. See what I'm saying? And some of us will be able to scale that wall, and there might be parts of the wall that you can scale, and there might be others that are just cut off. And that might be part of the experience that Pisces is going through, Pisces rising is going through. Now, Pisces rising has been getting a lot of Jupiter in Taurus 3 action. And this coming weekend could be a really important moment for you, Pisces rising, with the Jupiter Cazimi. So pay attention to what insights come to you, especially in relationship to your daily habits, your daily routines, your neighbors, your siblings, your wisdom that arises from within you rather than the information that comes to you from an external source. Oftentimes, I've witnessed Piscean risings, suns, etc., desiring to surrender or merge with some kind of higher power, whether it's a deity or with a guru or a person that represents a spiritual consciousness. That can be good if it's with the higher consciousness itself. It can be bad if we're giving our power over to a human that is merely a channel for this and not the source itself. So that's a way of saying trust your own divinity that is within you And that's what a lot of this Taurus stack up could be teaching you in the third house. The third house is really about feeling this internal intuition, this internal knowledge and knowing, and not necessarily giving away our power to an externalized source. So I think that's part of the conversation that we're having here too. There could be some things from your past that you're processing right now too, with Pluto moving through the 12th house, learning how to deal with ways that you've undermined yourself or that people have undermined you in the past. And there could be a lot of anger that's beneath the surface with Pluto in the 12th house. But what I would say is try as much as possible to bring some of those challenges to light, right? Make them conscious. Because when we let things fester in the shadows, that's when they proliferate. When we bring something like that to the light, it helps to heal it. So be willing to go through some of those kind of challenges with Pluto moving through the 12th house. Oh, and owning your power, your relationship to power. Sometimes Pluto, I think, can represent power in our life. And Pisces rising maybe feel slightly disempowered with Pluto in the 12th, but I think it's because it is unintegrated at this point. The other thing Pisces rising I think is really important is that you are going to have Jupiter moving into its exile in the 4th and becoming angular once again. So this is something where you might be exploring your options in your living situation in particular, and you may feel a little bit out of place right away. You may take some time to reintegrate into where you feel a sense of belonging. There could be that siren call that Pisceans always tend to hear could be pulling you far ashore. I have a Pisces rising friend who moves a lot, and it feels like that siren call is calling them to distant shores and then calling them back to different areas. And they've recently gone through a move where they took a risk to move into place, and then they found out that wasn't working for them, and then they're moving back to a different place. And that's just, sometimes that's a part of the exploration process. But this could be an expansion of a family too. Oftentimes when we have Jupiter moving through our 4th and then subsequently our 5th, we have bringing people into our family where our family is growing. So that could be another thing that could be bringing you new experiences. Keep in mind too that every Jupiter Gemini, delineation I'm making is squared with Saturn. So there will be a limitation to the amount of options that we can realistically pursue. And Saturn's going to make that very clear. So I would highly, highly recommend when Jupiter moves into Gemini that we pace ourselves and that we don't commit too heavily to too many things that are unsustainable. Explore, yes. Commit, maybe not just yet. Okay? And it's okay to say no to certain opportunities that come to you. Just because an opportunity comes to you does not mean that you have to do it. I've learned this the hard way. I used to say yes to everything. If someone brought me an opportunity, I'd be like, oh, that's an opportunity. I have to do it. As I got older and realized what my capacity was, I've learned to say no way more. And I'm much more at peace by learning to say no, especially when it comes to like what could be considered an opportunity. This was happening a lot as a musician. People were like, you want to come play this? And it's great exposure. And I had to learn to say, I have enough exposure. Show me the money. that would be my response now. But even if you were getting paid to do something, there's only so many things that you can do and do them well. So that's another thing to consider. All right, let's keep going. Aries rising, you've been so patient. And you Taurus risings, I know you're last now, but patience, I'm sure that patience is probably fairly a virtue for most of you. But Aries rising, you've done so good to this point. Okay? I don't mean to be patronizing, but I know how hard it can be to wait. All right, so Aries rising, there is, first of all, hopefully Aries rising, if you're listening to this near the full moon, you've survived Mars conjoining the North Node. I believe that is happening this weekend, the 19th. It's coming up. So if you're listening to this now, Aries rising, just be very aware that you've got a super juiced Mars in your first house conjoining the North Node that is probably going to make you desire independence even more strongly than you normally do. Okay? And be very careful about asserting yourself in a way that could create collateral damage. Okay? Let's just get that out of the way. Now, if you've successfully navigated the Mars North Node conjunction in your first house, this full moon is going to be coming off of the heels of a Venus-Jupiter conjunction in your second house, something where you're remedying something around your budget, around how you support yourself. You might be having new habits and routines about your budget, getting realistic about what you can afford and what you can't. Oftentimes with people with fire risings, sometimes they'll be impulsive with money. Okay, just any fire type can be impulsive with money. I would say that maybe Aries might be a little bit slower with Taurus in the second house, maybe preferring quality, right, over just doing it. But with this third and ninth house full moon, there's a spotlight on your inner knowing versus the knowledge that comes to you from an external source. So you could be getting a message from a teacher. You could be getting a message from a religious organization. You could be experiencing a pilgrimage that brings you new insights into your local community, etc. Ninth house is related to journeys that we take to find meaning in our life and find purpose. So you could be feeling a desire to move around a little bit around this period of time. The sun is going to be proliferating options in your potentially your local environment. So there might be an expansion of your errands that you need to do or something like that. Like Jupiter is going to move into the third house too. So there could be some good fortune coming to a sibling, or there could be some needs to hold ambiguities related to a sibling or a neighbor or an extended family member, something like that. You could also be expanding your desire to learn, to take a class or a course or something like that. Oftentimes, the learning experience is related to third house, where sometimes we are teaching something in the ninth house as well. So be open to those possibilities. Be open to learning new systems of knowledge without committing to too many things too quickly. All right? Okay. Also, Aries, just to be forewarned, just to be forearmed. Mars is going to conjoin Uranus on July 15th. I know that's kind of further down the road, but all of the movements that you're making with your budget right now, with your resources to remedy past mistakes, try to get them out of the way right now while you have Jupiter and Venus there, so that once Mars hits there and Uranus, that you're fully prepared for those things. Because I think this is a good advice for everyone. Take advantage of remedying the past mistakes now before it blows up into a bigger issue, potentially in July. Okay. Let's finish this off with Taurus rising. Okay, Taurus rising. Here we have the full moon in the second and eighth house. So the moon is in the eighth house and the sun is in the second. So we have a spotlight on your resources, on the way that you make money, the way that you support your body, yourself, whatever goes into your mouth. This is the second house is really like the mouth of the zodiac, I think, is everything that's supporting the self. And you have that big Taurus stellium in your first house. This has been probably a pretty dynamic time period the last few months for Taurus risings and Taurus suns and moons, etc. A lot of changes probably to your habits, your body, your character, the way that you see yourself. And Pluto's moving into your 10th house here. It's moving through your 10th house now, changing your relationship to the public. So this full moon, you may get messages about a shared resource that causes you to think about what your options are to make more money. Maybe it's some insight with a partner's resources that causes you to maybe have a little bit of anxiety about your own money or something like that. But try to get all the information first before you make a judgment on it. You also have Venus coming together with Jupiter the same day, which is nice. It seems positive, where you could have a breakthrough potentially with remedying a past issue that has been challenging. You're also probably getting some really good insight into your role within a community and within a shared group with Saturn in the 11th house, and maybe committing to a group endeavor or maybe leaving one. So that those are both significations of Saturn in a sign is the concretization of something or the ending of something. So Taurus rising, I wish you luck with that. Shortly after this full moon, both Jupiter and Venus are going to move into your second house. So this is, if you're worried about resources at this full moon, both benefics are coming into your second house. So that's the good news. Just be open to flexibility when it comes to what those sources might be. And that's true for all of us. Flexibility is the key term in this lunation cycle. All right, friends, let's start looking at our I-Ching. First of all, thank you so much for being here with me today. I appreciate all of you. I am excited about all of the things people have shared today, and we're going to take a look at this I-Ching to help guide us through, and then we'll have an animal in a second. So I asked, what is the essence of this full moon in Sagittarius I in 2024? And the hexagram I got was number 9. Now, I've alluded to this throughout the broadcast today, but hexagram number 9 is called small accumulation. It also translates to the taming power of the small, restraint of the powerful by the weak, small farming, taking care of the little things, accumulation of small advantages, using gentleness and friendly persuasion, temporarily held back, but the rain will come. That to me is the story that sticks out the most about hexagram number 9, is dense clouds, but no rain. You know that moment before a storm where the clouds are gathering, everything's getting thick in the air, it's getting dark, and you can start feeling it in your joints, but everything's just feeling held in check. Like you just want the rain to come, you want the liberation. That's what this full moon is potentially going to feel like, is we've got all the elements in place, but it just hasn't happened yet. I think what we need is some more information. So a couple other things here. It says rain symbolizes nourishment, release of tension, and success. Dense clouds offer the promise of eventual rain. However, the rain has not yet fallen. Hence, there is nothing to do but wait for events to play themselves out. The situation is not unfavorable. There is the promise of success in the long run, but the circumstances currently prevent you from doing much to bring your plans to fruition. Your advance is blocked by factors that you are not yet fully aware of. Although this may be frustrating, you should maintain a realistic attitude. Even though the barriers to progress seem minor and frustratingly trivial, do not underestimate them. Exercise caution. Do not try to force the issue. Instead, do all that you can now to prepare in small ways for the eventual breakthrough. And we have a changing line. And this changing line is line number 1. And it says, returning to the way. How can there be blame in this? Good fortune. So to return to the way, Jack Balkin says in his wonderful book, The Laws of Change. To return to the way means to recognize the true nature of a situation rather than trying to force matters through an exercise of will. As you try to move forward boldly, you encounter obstacles and obstructions. When this happens, hold back and return to a position that gives you maximum flexibility to advance or retreat as the situation warrants. Be patient and do not try to force matters. Events are not fully in your control. Concentrate on dealing with day-to-day affairs. Once you have retreated to a secure position and ascertain the real nature of the situation, you may take action with confidence, and this will bring good fortune. Sound familiar? We've been talking about the flexibility of Gemini, and the I-Ching it just does, it never fakes the funk on a nasty dunk, as Shaq likes to say. So flexibility, and especially with Jupiter moving into Gemini and the Sun moving into Gemini and Venus moving into Gemini, we have to be able to hold the ambiguities and explore our options. This is changing the hexagram number 57, which translates to gentle influence. This is related to the wind or the bending of wood. Okay, so compliance, humility, gentleness, penetration, wind, persistence. Okay, says the best way to affect the situation right now is through gentle, persistent action and subtle forms of influence. The text compares the right way of proceeding to that of the wind. I know that we had someone was asking about Jupiter and Gemini and related to the wind. So here is your Dino was asking that earlier. So here is some confirmation about the wind and the gentleness potentially. A mild breeze seems inconspicuous, but it can penetrate everywhere. Its effects are gradual, but are considerable over time. It is delightful and unassuming. Therefore, it is not feared or resisted, but is gladly and gratefully accepted. And because it is accepted, it has influence. So this is all about gentleness. It's not about being forceful. It's not about forcing our beliefs and forcing our goals or whatever down people's throats. It's about how can we just constantly and consistently and gently reach out to people and have an influence in a situation, especially if we don't have complete control over it. And that is great advice from the I-Ching. Okay, we've got one more thing for you. We have an animal. The animal that I have pulled for this lunation is the cockatiel, which is a very airy and very airy bird. So the cockatiel, represents communication. It represents being able to lighten up a little bit. They are also very loyal and devoted partners. They are birds that like to be in a community with other birds. They get bored easily. That sound like any sign familiar to you? And if they are too bored, they will start picking at their feathers and they will start self-harming basically. So we need to stay active. We need to be a little bit social, I think, too. We need to ask people for ideas. We need to not get stuck in these repetitive thought patterns that these narratives, these loops that we get ourselves in because we only have our own perspective. So we might need to talk about things with things. Cockatiel also warns us with these sharp beaks and sharp claws that sometimes our words can hurt people. So we need to be very careful about how we express ourselves, especially with a Sagittarian full moon and a Gemini sun. For those of you who haven't had an experience with an angry Gemini, their words can tear your guts out. You know, that they can find the little weaknesses, and it's hard to win an argument with someone who has strong Gemini placements. Very difficult. I can speak from experience. So I think that we have to be careful about how sharp our words are, that using words as weapons and using beliefs as weapons. I think that sometimes we get really fixated on a certain belief system, a certain way of acting out in the world, and then we expect everyone else to conform to exactly what how we express ourselves, what we believe, etc. And as we've been seeing in the news cycle, when we force our beliefs on others and make others wrong with their chosen individual lives and belief systems, the blowback can be intense and it can be severe. So it's okay to express yourself. It's okay to have beliefs. Just allow space for other people's beliefs and try to get to know other people's perspectives. Appreciate the diversity in life, I think Cockatiel is teaching us. It says there's so many different ways to be. There's so many different ways to be in the world. There's so many different ways to have families, relationships, things that we love and who we love. And it's all good. It's all part of creation. I don't know if any of it is really quote unquote wrong. It just is. And we ascribe ethical value to it. So this is a great reminder to be able to see beauty in diversity and beauty in the different paths that we are each traversing and the different roles that we play in the world. So that is what I have for you today. Ani stopping in says, hey y'all, just saying hello. Can't wait for the replay. Nice to see you, Ani. Thanks for stopping in. Rachel Fletcher says, more blessings from the avian world. Yes, we've had a lot of birds lately that come up, so that's very cool. So I appreciate all of you. Thank you so much for hanging out with me today, for your patience. Do me a huge favor. Please like and subscribe to the channel. Sorry for some of the glitches today, but I appreciate you being here. I appreciate all of your wonderful comments. I value you as a community, and I hope that you're all doing well out there in whatever corner of the world that you're in and whatever experience that you're having today. Please join me next week again for another live stream. Do me a huge favor. If you could, on your way out, just please like the video, please the algorithmic gods. If you aren't subscribed to the channel, this is hopefully a space that you can feel free to be yourself, and hope that you'll subscribe. And if you're so inclined and you want to make a donation to the work I'm doing, there's a super chat or a buy me coffee after the fact. Always appreciate that as well. All right, my friends, that's what I've got for you today. Just checking in with any comments here. Jennifer says, give people an idea and let them go with however it's good for them. Don't push it. I agree with that, Jennifer. All right, so that's what I've got for you today. Remember. So much easier when we are being kind to one another. Kindness is the key. I know that there's so many painful things that we're experiencing right now, and it's so easy to project our anger onto not only those we care about, but those in our community. And I hear you. It's a lot of it's pain, sadness, frustration, but there are moments where we can take a deep breath and practice that kindness. And I hope that we're able to do that and model that here in our communities here today. So appreciate all of you, love all of you, and be kind to yourself, be kind to one another. We'll see you the next time. Peace.